The Browns, they're putrid. They're the worst team in the NFL.
The season, the 2024 season is over.
Lamar Jackson can't win the playoffs. He'll win a third MVP, though, so that's great.
Drew Sample is the most important piece of the Bengals offense next year.
Go Joe Burrow. He deserves to be MVP. I wish he was the Browns quarterback. Kind of mean that.
If you're looking for the most reactionary, silly, and unserious show on the internet, then you're home. Live from Hamilton, Ohio, it's Off the Bench by Chatterbox Sports on 1410 ESPN Radio.
The season, the 2024 season, is not dead.
That's right.
It is not dead. Welcome into Off the Bench, final show of the year. Reed Mouse filling in for Justin Kenner. Kenner's, I believe, going down to the Rose Bowl. He's going all the way out west with the Coastal Elites. We'll be here back in Hamiltucky and just keeping Bengals season alive. Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing, Jacob Tissett. We are sponsored by United Dairy Farmers on 1410 Wing AM. But the Bengals keep their season alive somehow, some way. From 1-4, 4-8, they are now 8-8, and are. Is it likely that they make the postseason? Absolutely not. But here we are. I said, get us to Week 18, and that's exactly what they have done. Guys, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. It's the first time I've seen you guys since the Christmas. Elliot, you helped me out quite a bit. On Saturday, I got on Christmas, my brother was in town from Kansas. He brought his two nephews. My dad got us all Bengals tickets, Broncos, because they'd never been to a Bengals game. And I was scrambling. I was prepared to do the show, and then I was like, you know what? Maybe Elliot will do it. Maybe Elliot, and he did. So thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. It was first of all, it's a fantastic week off, so that was great. Got to experience a good Christmas. Had a very good Christmas. I don't know, like, once you get past a certain age, the Christmases all are kind of the same. I thought this one was pretty good for me. I thought this was a better than the middle sort of Christmas. So
I reached an age where I was excited about socks.
Yeah, that was good. Okay. Yeah. My dad had a horrible bit this past week where there's some terrible Christmas song that has to do with socks, and he thinks it's the funniest song that's ever been made, and it's the worst song ever created. And he kept playing it, and it's like, Dad, the bit's not funny. I wish it was funny. I was cheering for it to be funny.
Did he get to the
point? But it's so unfunny.
Did he get, when you're beating a dead horse?
Yeah.
Like, normally, for this bit to work, it's got to be funny the first time.
Right. It was never funny.
Yeah. Okay. But, like, if you beat a dead horse, it's funny. You say it again, little funny, and then everyone's like, you keep doing it. Then you get to a wall. And when you get to that wall, you just got to push through. Yeah. And then it's funny again. But
yeah, well, he forced it right off the bat, and you can't force a bit like that, and it failed from the jump. But outside of that bit, it was a very, very, very good Christmas. So I was very happy to experience that with all the fam, and had a fun time watching sports. Shout out to the NFL; they've completely overtaken the NBA on Christmas Day. That's over now. I will say those games sucked. I mean, the Christmas Day games were probably the worst.
NFL's been on a roll. Some pretty terrible games.
Terrible games in prime time.
Except for when the Bengals.
Yeah.
Except for the Bengals.
All right.
Last night was great.
Yeah, last night was good.
I won't get into too much of it. The NFL wants the Bengals to stay alive. Right?
I think now, my brain's working here. I think if the Bengals win Saturday night, old Raj might pull some strings.
I'm just saying.
Old Raj might get on the phone with his dear friend Aaron and say, do all the ayahuasca you want. Let's win a football game.
Could you imagine Bills versus Bengals in a playoff game? 5,000
It'd be higher rated than the conference championships.
Oh my God! It would be the best game of the NFL season by far. It would have the highest ratings for sure.
It's the thing about the Bengals, and I was going to save this bit for later. You can say a lot of things about the 2024 Cincinnati Bengals. The one thing that is 100% true is every time they've been in a big spot, they delivered a great game. The only one that didn't was the Giants game. That was a dud. That was a dud. That was Sunday Night Football. That was a dud. Every other time, 4 o'clock window, prime time window, Monday night, Sunday night, Thursday night, whatever it is, the Bengals put out an absolutely just barn burner of a game every single time. And that's a big shout out to our offense, which scores 1 billion points, and our defense, which has come on the last few weeks. And we'll talk about that later, whether that's just like a red herring about this defense, whether we just played some bad teams, or if they truly have kind of turned it around these final few weeks. But a lot of points are normally scored in
Yeah.
a Bengals game.
I wanted to say this too because I did the stream on Saturday. Thank you to Casey for helping me through that. Casey was a big help with that. I had to go in the vMix and fix it all up. So Casey, without Casey, I couldn't have done it. But saying that, I don't know how you've done it every game because
it out of you.
I wanted to die. I wanted it to be the end.
Yeah, no.
There was when they gave
You
up.
got a full experience of it too.
Yeah, like I was kind of like happy. Like I wasn't trying to be like too reactionary for the first, I would say 2.5 quarters. Once we got to the end of the third, I knew something bad was going to happen. And once that touchdown, by the way, insane touchdown. Nobody catches that football except if it's against the Bengals when you can't have it happen.
That was the second longest air yards throw on a touchdown in
Was
Next
it
Gen
really?
Stats history, behind the P.J. Walker 55-yard Hail Mary from the Panthers years ago.
Oh my God, it's just absolutely insane. So I will say shout out to Jacob for still being here with us today through this entire season because it was miserable. When he missed that field goal, I was ready
Oh
for it.
yeah.
And by the way, no more field goals. We'll talk about the Bengals later. No more field goals. I don't want any kicker. I don't care if it's 4th and 30. You either punt or you go for it. No more kicks.
Important to note: perfect snap, perfect hold.
Perfect snap, perfect hold. Just an outright shank directly into the center of a pole. Outstanding kick by Cade York, the franchise record holder for longest kick
that's true.
in
That's
Bengals
true.
history.
How was it? Because whenever I do the live stream,
Yeah.
I get to the show portion after the game.
Oh, I texted you this. I was out.
You got nothing.
So
You got
I-
nothing
yeah,
to give.
yeah.
You've literally
Yeah.
got. I'm not. You do it for 4 hours, right? And then you got to recap the game, and you really don't get a breather because you're like you go straight from the thing to the show,
Yeah.
and you get no time to collect your thoughts. You're coming down from a high, or you're trying to lift yourself up from the pits of hell.
Yeah.
And it's you cannot think. And I told Jacob this when I did the Panthers game the first time this year. I think Elliot was in charge of clipping that day.
The tweets, yeah.
Yeah, you were in charge of clipping, and he told me the next day, he's like, Reed, I tried to clip up a couple of your takes. I don't know what you were saying. Like, you were just incoherent
Yeah.
thoughts. You're just rambling. You sound you sound like God bless the people that live outside this building. You sound like the people living out there on just a normal day. Like, it's crazy.
It was just I just started ranting. There was a point during the show, and I haven't rewatched it. I've watched some of the clips of the funny reactions, but I haven't rewatched the show with Craig yet because there were points during it where I want to say I had like 7-minute rants and I had no clue what I was talking about.
No.
Not a single clue, not a thought in my brain was rolling around up there. I was just talking to talk, and I told Craig, I'm sorry, Craig, I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm just ranting. And maybe part of it was because I was like, I got an energy boost once the Bengals somehow miraculously won that game. But my God, it is a lot. It is a lot.
I've told Jacob this, and I don't know how you do this. It would require more bodies, but like, it would almost make more sense just to like save the mental capacity of the person doing the live stream to like have a different crew come in and wrap up the game.
Yeah.
So it's like there's like a dude that does a pregame show and a halftime show and a postgame show, and then there's the dude that does it for the entire game, and you just give breaks. Like it truly
Breaks would be life changing.
It would be great.
Breaks would be life changing.
Super chat from KP from KC, surviving Zac Taylor, a.k.a. Heart Attack Zach. We'll talk about Zac Taylor.
We will. And I like how you threw me under the bus like twice. Like, there's some guys that work at Chatterbox that just defend Zac Taylor left and right. I'm like, what can I say? What can I say?
You too.
Final fit, Casey. How was your Christmas and your time off? Was it great?
Yeah, it was good. It was good. Lots of time spent with family and friends, and enjoyed hanging out with everyone. It's always a pleasure to help out you guys in the streams and whatnot, so don't worry about that, Elliot. And, Bengals, they survive another week.
Are you
just
happy
a
about it,
complete
though? You
roller
don't look
coaster.
happy about it. You look like it's beating you up.
This
And that's
season
it.
has taken its toll.
Yeah, I was
This
going to
season has
say,
taken
you
its
look
toll.
like a guy who's lost it a little bit. And that's not your fault. The Bengals suck, and they've sucked all season long. But they have given us enough hope to make this last week matter. And that is what I asked for once they lost to the Steelers. They can
think
either
it's-
lose out or make the last week matter. They elected to do the latter.
I think it's just I'm trying to mentally prepare. Like, this is the final week of football. Like, that's in my mind. That's what I'm
you guys-
trying to mentally prepare for.
Did you
It's-
parlay it?
Yeah.
I've not
parlayed
parlayed
it.
it.
I
yet.
saw
I
on the
did the
sports
parlay.
book that you can bet the Bengals to make the postseason, and it's like plus 13, plus 1,200 or something like that. But the parlay for the
Exact
the
same
portion
outcomes.
is like plus 17. Like
Yeah.
it's greater odds. And I was like, wait a minute, are you charging me juice? Are you charging me juice just to not make the parlay? Like you just making it easier on me? And you're like, yeah, we're gonna take about five times your money off this wager. But we'll see. That 9-point spread when it came out, like actually felt like a Bengals loss.
Yeah.
Like when it came out, I was like, what? We'll get to the Chiefs. I watched a lot of Dialed In with Casey, Tom, and Luke, and I don't know if Luke was trying to get to this point, but it seemed like he was almost accusing the Chiefs of trying to lose so they don't have to play the Bengals, which I think that's a silly take, but it is fun to say. It is fun to say. I had a whole monologue ready for you guys. We'll flip it. We'll talk about it later when we do the headlines, because it's
We do headline segment 6 now.
no, we do it second. We'll do it second.
Incredibly
And
happy.
we'll get to my monologue, which is just in the season of blessings. We've got to acknowledge one of truly the greatest blessings this city has ever had, at least from the athletics front, and that is Joe Burrow. But we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to do Elliot's headlines. You're listening and watching Off the Bench, 1410 Wing and AM, presented by United Dairy Farmers. And we are back on Off the Bench. Reed Mouse filling in for Justin Kenner. Justin Kenner going out to the Rose Bowl. He's going to go watch the Buckeyes. He's been on a little bit of a bender watching football games, and that's really cool. Because like I said, he went to the game, the Browns game yesterday, which God bless his soul. That was absolutely miserable. God, I don't know how the Browns do it. I really don't know how Browns fans do it, because I was a Browns fan for about an hour and a half. And this is terrible.
Well, that's why the draft format is so bad. You wouldn't have teams tanking like that. They'd be trying to win if we reorganize the draft.
we're not doing that today.
DTR
But what we are doing today.
This is not an exaggeration. DTR should have some sort of punishment for making me watch him play football. I don't know who he had to convince. I don't know if he has something on somebody, but the fact that guy's a quarterback in the National Football League, very, very disheartening. Very disheartening. He was the worst quarterback by far in the NFL this year. By far.
I thought you were being a little hard on him, because it was the first drive, and at that point he was like 5 of 6. They got in
For 7 yards.
Yeah, but it was 5 of 6, and he got to the point, but it was just like I thought you were being a little hard. Then you just sit down and watch, and you're like, this is absolute, and a time and age which I think some people like to say that quarterback play. They would know more about it than I would. Tom Brady and like all these old-time quarterbacks, they go like quarterback plays at an all-time low. I don't know what they're smoking. I really don't know what they're smoking, because I watch the games and I'm like, this is amazing. And I get that the rules have changed quite a bit to allow for better offensive play, but it's way more enjoyable to watch quarterbacks now than it was 15 years ago, where they just sat in the pocket. Like I told someone this. We're gonna get to your headlines eventually. We're gonna get to there. But shout, and you guys can make fun of the Chiefs thing. I think Patrick Mahomes really changed the way that quarterbacks play, like all the trick
arm
plays
angles
and stuff like that. 15 years ago, if you weren't upright, throwing it exactly like a quarterback's supposed to throw it, you weren't allowed to throw the ball. And now we have Joe Burrow throwing it behind his back. But without further ado, we have further ado.
I think you said further or do.
Yeah, don't make fun of me. I'm from Hamilton.
I'm sorry.
Headlines.
Score updates, breaking news, local and national headlines. Whatever's going on in the world of sports, Elliot has you covered. Off the Bench brings you Elliot's headlines.
I like the whistle. I still like the whistle.
I have it in my car too. I forgot it in my car.
Do you really?
Yeah. I'll have it tomorrow.
No,
I won't.
No, you won't. Thursday. Headline. Oh, well, actually, here's this headline. Chatterbox Bengals live at Champions Grill for the final time, maybe, for the final time this Thursday, 7 p.m. leading into Thursday night. Is there Thursday night football this week?
There's not.
So it's leading into fun. That's what it's leading into, fun. Craig Sandlin will be available to us live.
Oh, baby! Oh!
Is what I believe is.
Oh boy.
What was that? But Craig, I believe.
Champion.
So it'll be a full house
Going
on
to work.
Thursday for the final show. I hope to see everybody there. It's going to be a fun time. Headlines. Falcons last night losing to the Commanders in overtime 30-24. One of the better, as Reed said, Sunday night football games of the past few months here. Jaden Daniels threw for 227 yards, 3 touchdowns, while also rushing for 127 yards in the win. Michael Penix was okay. He threw for about 220. Wasn't very good, but teach their own. Bijan Robinson was good. 2 touchdowns there. Eagles, they dismantled the Cowboys 41-7. Thank you very much, Jerry Jones, for coming out this season. Saquon Barkley has become the 9th player in NFL history to surpass 2,000 rushing yards. This is an interesting nugget. He is 101 yards away from the all-time rushing record, but it's obviously in a meaningless game, but it's against the Giants.
Yeah, he's gonna.
So would you play him against his former team to break the all-time rushing record?
They're just gonna hand the ball off. They will probably give him like the 4th off or something. I don't know how that game's gonna end.
He's gonna get 101 yards and he'll be done for the day.
Right, yeah, he's just gonna surpass it, and all these records are gonna get surpassed as we keep adding games to the regular season, which is okay.
Important to note, he got 2,016 games. Like that.
Right,
That is cool.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. The one thing I will say about our beloved Eagles and Nick Sirianni. Elliot, you like to make fun of me for making fun of Nick Sirianni. Did you see where he was trying to fight his coordinator or his
I did not see
his
this.
positional coach last week?
I did not see this.
What is going on there? If the Eagles lose their first playoff game, is Nick Sirianni fired? Because I think it's very similar to like the Aaron Rodgers thing in Green Bay towards the end of the Aaron Rodgers run, where it's like there's so much noise, it's so annoying, but they're winning. So what can you do? But the second that they like underachieve, I think they'll just he drives me nuts.
If that first playoff game loss is to the Commanders, yes, he's fired. If it's to the Packers, probably not.
Okay, fair enough.
Rolling on here, Dolphins, as we mentioned, they squeaked by the Browns 20-3. DTR was outstanding, 24 for 47, 170 yards and an interception. Good job. Raiders, they refused to try and get the number 1 pick, and believe it or not, the Raiders are now maybe going to fall out of the top 10. What a spectacularly bad way. Antonio Pierce, bye-bye, buddy. I say that with all due love and respect, but you just can't let this happen. They keep winning. They beat the Saints 25-10. Speaking of breaking records, Brock Bowers, he has broke a record, a 63-year-old NFL record for most yards by a rookie tight end, originally set by, any guesses?
Ditka.
Mike Ditka. Mike Ditka held the
12
record.
games.
In 12, that's out. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
outrageous.
outrageous.
Passing records from the 50s and 60s are actually crazy because they would do like a DTR line where it's 24
Yeah.
for 47, 6 interceptions, but also throw for like 460 yards in a game. You're like, what are these?
I don't
What
think
was
they
going on there?
realized that you could throw the ball less than like 40 yards downfield.
Like they would just, it was almost like they just did like 20-yard Hail Marys. They're like, we're passing it this down. We couldn't get it via running, so we're just going to drop back 7 yards and throw it up and see what happens.
Rolling on here, our hero, our sweet prince, Drew Lock, got it done yesterday. 4 touchdown passes. He beats the Colts 45-33.
The 6th best quarterback game of all time, according to EPA.
Oh, that's so
1.18
funny.
EPA per play for Drew Lock yesterday. 6th best game of all time.
That was, I'm not kidding you, maybe the most enjoyable game that wasn't a Bengals game
Yeah.
that I've watched as a football fan in years. Because
Yeah.
it felt like a Bengals game, and they just kept pulling just big plays out of nowhere from the worst team in football.
Yeah.
It was great.
He was 10% completion percentage over expectation, Drew Lock.
It was
He was
great.
unbelievable.
Yeah, listen, I think, and this is where I kept seeing that one guy on Twitter who kept saying, Drew Lock is the villain. He's the villain. He took away their pick. At some point, you want the number 1 pick, and I get it. They desperately want a quarterback. They want the number 1 pick. I think they can get what they want with that win. I could be wrong on that. But it's like when you have a group of guys in a locker room that have suffered all season long, let them have a bone every now and then. You have to give them a win. You can't be mad at your team for fighting a little bit.
I did think it was funny after the game. Jermaine Elemenor, their right tackle, tweeted, "That was for the fans. We put you through so much this year. We haven't won a home game yet. We finally got you one." And all the replies were Giants fans. It was like, this is the last thing we wanted. Like, we were begging you to lose, and you just couldn't do it.
It's I'm with you, Elliot, though. I know it's the wrong thing to do as a fan.
100% it is.
But I like to just watch my team win. I said that back when we had Andy Dalton and we were going 7-9 every year. I was like, I just want to go on Sunday and compete for 4 hours. Yeah. Can we do that, even though it's the wrong thing to do?
Speaking of great quarterback performances, Drew Lock, one of the best ever. Aaron Rodgers had a 1.2 QBR. I believe in the history of PFF or something in quarterback grading, there's been like 9,900 games or something recorded and graded. It is like the 25th worst game ever recorded by a quarterback. Aaron Rodgers, you talk about a disaster of a season. By the way, and he's not going to get blamed for it, but he absolutely pulled an Anthony Richardson and took himself out of that football game. Just benched himself, quit on the guys, quit on the team. I understand it's a little bit different. It's 33-40 to nothing. But at the same time, he quit on the team. He was 12 for 18, 112 yards, 2 interceptions, got sacked like 4 times.
And an unnecessary roughness on a pick he threw.
And he committed a penalty. Tyrod Taylor came in, by the way, 11 for 14, 83 yards, 2 touchdowns. Immediately.
Here's the thing. Aaron Rodgers, I'm going to speak to you from my soul to your soul. For the next 6 days, from today until you play on Sunday, can you just not do drugs? Just stay sober for like the next 6 days. And do me a favor, just a little bit of light. Like I don't want any darkness. I just want a little bit of light. If it's a nightlight in your room, just make sure it's not completely darkness. We don't need to do any of those retreats that you do in the off season. Just stay sober 6 days and just have light always. Please. That's all I'm asking. I need one game out of you, Aaron. Come on.
Aaron Rodgers, yikes. What an absolute train wreck. Is it worse to be a Jets fan than any other fan? Jets fan, Jags?
Well, it got worse today. Did you see 2 names that are on the Jets head coaching interview list?
No. Who?
Ron Rivera and Rex Ryan.
Oh, my God.
Rex
and did
Ryan
you see,
going to the Jets.
Dip his toe back in the pool.
Sauce Gardner commented on a Bengals thing, it was like, tell T. Higgins to come here. He's like, I will not be doing that. I think they all hate it there. They haven't made the playoffs in 14 years. 14 years was the last time the Jets made the playoffs.
I don't think there's an MLB team that hasn't made the postseason in 14 years. I don't think there's an NBA team. Well, everyone makes.
I think it's the longest. I think it's the longest streak in
professional
football
sports. To where like things rotate around a lot, to where like you can get it. Like we're talking about the Raiders being a dumpster fire. They played the Bengals in the postseason like 2 years ago. So like it's just incredible how bad the Jets are. And I didn't realize how bad the Jets franchise was as a kid. They are up there with us, the Browns and the Lions. They're worse. They are worse. They had that.
They got that one Super Bowl.
They had a Broadway Joe winning the 2nd or 3rd Super Bowl ever, and then they're just like, you know what? Phone it in. Phone it in. They made their millions as a 22-year-old, and they're like, that's good. It's good enough for me.
Rolling on here, the Vikings survive last night, 27-25. They hang on to beat the Packers. Sam Darnold, exceptional. The Buccaneers, they crushed the Panthers in a game that everybody thought would happen. I mean, it was non-competitive from the jump. 48-14. Baker and Sam Darnold were 60 of 76 for 736 yards, 8 touchdowns, no picks.
Yeah, it's great.
This is why we've got to be a little less judgmental of picks right off the rip, because Baker. He played all right in Cleveland, but we labeled him as a bust. And Sammy Darnold had absolutely been a bust for 6 years now in the league, and he's probably going to get paid $40 million next year because of it.
Do Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold get Zach Wilson a contract next year?
They might.
3 teams as a backup, 4 cheap.
I think they might. What does Sam Darnold make this season?
I think he gets over 30, 35 a year.
Well, he makes 10 this year. That's what he got paid to play. He can get a franchise tag.
Yeah.
He can get a franchise tag, which I think is what they will do, the Vikings.
Yeah.
Which is they franchise tag, and it'll be like in the range of like 43 or something like that. Which is, I think that's he's legitimately an MVP. I mean, he's not really close there, but like he's a Pro Bowler. He's an MVP. He's been phenomenal.
We just talked about the Giants screwing up their whole draft order by winning. Why don't you flip 5 for J.J. McCarthy?
Yeah, I wouldn't hate it because it's going to be
I wouldn't
hard.
be shocked if he's not a Viking next year.
It's gonna be hard to take him away from that. I watched the video of them like lifting him up.
They love him, man.
They love him.
And O'Connell loves him.
They love him, and I don't think you can't take him away from the team next year.
What if he gets you to an
can't.
NFC Championship game? What if he gets you to a Super Bowl?
I don't know.
How do you look at the locker room, especially a guy like Justin Jefferson, and you're like, we're changing quarterbacks?
Here's the craziest part. He's the same age as Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
He's like a half year older.
He's like Anthony Richardson's only like 21 or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
So that's pretty similar.
But that's what I mean. It's not a Russell Wilson thing. Like, this can be your quarterback of the future.
So it's so similar to what you guys probably don't remember this. 20 years ago, the Chargers had this exact same scenario. They had this quarterback that Drew Brees. He had Drew Brees, who was fine, right? He was fine.
Yeah.
They get Phillip Rivers. They actually drafted Eli Manning, had to trade him for Phillip Rivers, that whole scenario. They get Phillip Rivers in the house, and they're like, we'll go with Drew Brees for one more year. They give him a franchise tag, or they sign him to a one-year deal, however it was structured back then. And he looks unbelievable. He looks unbelievable in Phillip Rivers' first year. Drew Brees threw for like 40 touchdowns. Great. They bring him back again. They're like, hey, we'll do this one more time. And he gets hurt.
Yeah.
And then Phillip Rivers turns into Phillip Rivers. They trade away Drew Brees, and the rest is history. So that's why I think you keep JJ around, just because we saw what happened with Kirk Cousins and Michael Penix. And it's everyone makes fun of teams for having 2 quarterbacks. It's not a bad problem to have.
No, you're right.
It's really not a bad problem.
Final NFL headline before we get into college football: the Jaguars. They get a win against the Titans. The Titans are now 2-14 against the spread this season. That is the worst in NFL history. Only 3 teams have been even close, and all those teams, 2 of them I think were in the 80s. One was in the 90s. So.
And they're the biggest winner of the weekend by far, up to 2nd overall. New England's at 1, already has their quarterback. Tennessee's going to get their pick of the quarterbacks.
Yep. College football. Colorado, they made it a point to keep their stars in the Alamo Bowl. They let them play. Blown out, 36-14 by BYU. Bye-bye to Shador and Travis Hunter. That's a tough way to go.
BYU, same record as SMU with more ranked wins, and no one was really talking about them for the playoffs.
Interesting. Army, they beat Louisiana Tech. I think it was supposed to be Marshall, but they opted out because their coach and all the team left.
Their AD fired their coach after winning a conference championship, and the players were like, well, we're not playing for you then.
Yeah, that's fair point. So they beat Louisiana Tech in the Independence Bowl 27-6. Miami, Ohio, they blew the door off Colorado State 43-17. Good for Miami. And the other Miami, the U, they lost to Iowa State 42-41. And maybe the best, I think bowl games are a joke. There is one bowl game that I will watch. One. And that will be the Pop-Tart Bowl. The Pop-Tart Bowl absolutely destroys their marketing.
Has there ever been a sponsor that's gotten
No.
more out of a bowl game?
No, I saw that tweet yesterday.
I think they're right.
1,000,000% no.
Yeah.
There is nobody that the little dancing mascots, and then you put them in the toaster.
And
Oh
they
my
yearn
God.
to be eaten?
Oh my God, it's
They
fantastic.
were walking around the sideline shoving Pop-Tarts in like reporters' faces, making them eat Pop-Tarts.
Cam Ward set the Division I career passing touchdown record, but after he did, he took a seat on the bench and let Emory Williams quarterback the team for the entirety of the second half. So he got his record and bounced. Nobody knows, I believe, nobody knows if that was an intentional benching or maybe that was just Cam Ward quitting.
Yeah,
a little bit.
that's the question, is whether that was discussed beforehand as like a point to be made, or whether or not he just pulled himself out after he broke the record. I think if it was discussed beforehand, Cristobal their head coach should say that and kind of save Cam Ward from a lot of this discourse. But I think if you're pulling yourself out after breaking a record, NFL teams don't care about opting out of bowl games. I think they'd care about that.
Yeah, that's bad optics. It's a shame. It's a true shame.
It is.
That the Bengals played at the exact same time as the Snoop Dogg Bowl.
Yeah.
Because Tom obviously was on the call with Snoop, and I forget the other analyst, but that was there too. But that would have been similar to the Pop-Tart Bowl. Would have been a fun one, especially because it's a local team playing in at Miami. Our very own Tom on the call with Snoop. I saw a couple highlights, and that was fun. But that would have been another bowl game that I absolutely would have sat down to watch. But was in Paycor Stadium.
I know we're late to break, but one
Take your
quick
time.
college basketball thing. 6 former Florida State basketball players, they have filed a lawsuit against head coach Leonard Hamilton, alleging unpaid NIL compensation worth $1.5 million. You kind of saw something like this at UNLV.
Yep.
So I imagine there's going to be a whole lot more of this. There's just going to be more problems with this NIL stuff. So yikes.
Included in this report, there was a team-wide holdout for a couple practices last year that they just didn't practice for the coach because they hadn't been getting paid. So
College athletics are in a weird spot right now.
Very
And
weird spot.
it was we knew it was going to be like this, but even when you know it's going to be like this, you get to it, it still feels like, oh man, this is just unraveling at the seams. So you just got to remind yourself that when we knew we were going to get into this space with college athletics, it was inevitable that guys were going to get paid, and the constant changing landscape of the transfer portal, and in college football the playoff format and all this stuff, it's just constantly moving and moving and moving. And with change, there's always going to be things kind of crumbling apart. It makes it feel like, wow, are we getting worse or is it getting better? It's going to get better. It will.
I don't know it'll get better once
it's different. It's going to be different. There's no doubt about that.
Once they like regulate it, because it's going to have to start being regulated, and you have to have salary caps or something like that. Then it'll get better. But as of right now, like the Miami head basketball coach, and I don't know how to say that guy's name.
Jim Larinaga.
So he stepped down mid-season because he doesn't want to deal with this anymore. And I do think it's a little bit of a hypocritical thing. I saw Kinner's take on it, and I don't disagree with it.
He's the George Mason guy, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he left.
And 3 of his 5 starters on his Final Four team at Miami were transfers.
All-time winningest head basketball coach at Miami. All of his players come back to him after the season, after getting to a Final Four, and they say, hey, where's our money? We want more money, or else we're going to transfer. And that's a weird place to be as a college coach. Now, the hypocritical side is a college coach does that everywhere. Luke Fickell does it. Every coach in the world in college absolutely does that. So to say that we don't think it's fair, or we're not used to the fact that players can do it to us, it's a little bit on the you're walking a tight line there, because I think you're able to do that, so why shouldn't they? But I understand why coaches are not liking this right now, and I'll be curious to see where it goes. If it's regulated, great. If not, I don't know. I think there's gonna be a lot more problems until the NCAA steps down or somebody takes control. There's nobody in control.
There's no one in control of any. There's gonna need to be CEOs of all these sports.
Yep.
And the thing about all this is, and I see every time that I hear about Jeremy Larinaga or one of the old football coaches stepping down because of the transfer portal and NIL. Listen, in the world of business, that happens all the time. Right? Like there's people that are used to the way of how they came up. Right? The way that Jim Larinaga became a coach, that's not the way it anymore. There will be new coaches that are better accustomed and have molded the way that they coach to this. We don't always have to appease the old ways. Everything changes. It's okay. It's okay. It's gonna get worse before it gets better, but eventually it'll be okay. I'm surprised, before we get to break, I am surprised that the biggest news in sports didn't make your headlines. The NHL fining the Dallas Stars for practicing on Christmas. Why can't we get better? Why can't we get better? That's what I want to know. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Bengals. Big win on Saturday night. We're going to talk about just Joe Burrow and why this should feel worse, because it's inevitable that they probably won't make the postseason. They need 3 things to happen. One of them involves a 9-point underdog winning a game. But it should feel worse where the Bengals are at, but it feels better. It feels better. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to talk Bengals on 1410 Wing AM. And we are back on Off the Bench, 1410 Wing. Reed Mouse filling in for Justin Kenner. And I always start off the show with, just rambling about where I feel about the Bengals, the NFL, all these things. Didn't get to do that today because we were talking holidays. And there's something that I want to point out. There's no mystery around my affection for the starting quarterback, the Cincinnati Bengals, Joe Burrow. I'll defend him tooth and nail. Even when he's playing bad, I constantly defend him. And in a season, we open this show up talking about the holidays. And the holidays, you always say, season's blessings. And it really is when you chisel down what Christmas and New Year's and getting together a family and all this stuff is. And even if you lump in Thanksgiving, you just think about all the blessings you have in your life. And as a Cincinnati Bengals fan, and really this entire town, Joe Burrow is a true blessing to this city. It is so incredible to have one of the true elite quarterbacks of the game. 28 teams, 29 teams, you ask them if they'll take Joe Burrow right now, and every single one of those 29 teams, there's a couple that'll stick with their quarterback, but that's where we're at. We have one of the true greats of the sport. And the way he plays, his swagger, his confidence, all this stuff, it looks like it's not going to go away anytime soon. 42 touchdowns. He's one of 11 quarterbacks to throw 40 touchdowns in a year in NFL history. He's 360 yards away, a really good game on Saturday night away from throwing for 5,000 yards. Do I think he'll get there? Probably not, but who knows? He's having one of the greatest seasons this city has seen in decades. It is a shame. It is a shame that it likely won't end in postseason, but we're going to go all the way back to the 70s. I know Joey Votto won the MVP in 2010. I know Barry Larkin won in 1995. Kenyon Martin, Joey Votto had a great 2007. All those, nothing tops what Joe Burrow has done this year. We have become numb to the fact that he's playing with a terrible line. 7 sacks on Saturday. 7 sacks, and he still throws for 420. Won the game 3 different times. When he was younger, we're like, hey, get this line around him. Get a better line around him, and we'll see what happens. The line's gotten a little better from what it was 2 years ago. And yeah, this is a completely ravaged offensive line in terms of injuries. Every team kind of goes through this, though. We've become numb to how bad it is. Like, we acknowledge it. Like, oh, he got sacked 7 times. Oh, he's having to scramble out. That's how good he's been, that he's constantly having to make miraculous plays. He missed a couple passes on Saturday, but you forget it all. In fact, I didn't even realize I was in the stadium, and part of the thing about going to games is you don't get all the nuances. You don't know the stats. You kind of get swept up. Sometimes you need someone in your ear, like the analyst, telling you what's going on. I truly didn't realize how great Joe Burrow was on Saturday until I went back and watched the highlights. And it was more the same. And yeah, he's got Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, who are absolute needs on this team. And we can get into that if we want. But Joe Burrow, this city has a championship caliber quarterback in a sport where you need one. And you look at the last 15 Super Bowl winners, there's been 2 that haven't had an elite quarterback that have won the Super Bowl. 2. Nick Foles, who they probably shouldn't have even won that Super Bowl if Bill Belichick wasn't stubborn and let his best defensive player play. We can throw Joe Flacco up there. But other than that, you need an elite quarterback, and we absolutely have one. Do you guys ever take into consideration how lucky we are to be Bengals fans at a time? And I know that it's back-to-back seasons of probably not going to the postseason. Hopefully I'm wrong there. Hopefully the Chiefs play everyone for at least a half, and the Broncos somehow mess that up, and Aaron Rodgers stays sober for a week, and we get a good game from him on Sunday, and we get to see them play at Highmark Stadium, and we beat the Steelers as we always do in Pittsburgh.
Road AFC North primetime game, win a lot of those.
Right. Do you ever take into account like how truly lucky we are to have him? Because he's unbelievable, guys.
Yeah. So Craig and I talked about this on whatever day that was. I honestly don't know what day it was. Whenever we did the Bengals show Saturday, we talked about, like, do you ever just sit back and like think about Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, and that you're watching the best wide receiver and quarterback in Bengals history right now. Every game he plays, you're watching it. I said then, and I'll say it now. It's hard to appreciate it when you don't have success. And I know he's had success.
Right.
He's had the Super Bowl run. He's had back-to-back AFC championship runs. But you need to see consistent success to really appreciate it. If they miss the playoffs this year, he's having the best season by far, by a million billion percentage points. He's having the best season ever in Bengals history. He's not going to win the MVP, and he's not going to go to the playoffs. And that's where there's a little bit of disconnect, because you have to have one and the other, I think. You can't just not make the playoffs while also play as good as you can. And it's not his fault at all that he's in this situation.
Right.
So, yeah, I do sit back and I'm like, thank God Joe Burrow's here. But at the same time, if you don't have correlating success from a team standpoint, from a franchise standpoint, what's it all for? What are we playing for? Because Joe Burrow, by the way, the Eagles game, The Eagles game was October 27th.
Yep.
Since October 27th, he's thrown for 250 yards and 3 touchdowns in every single game. At least 250 yards and 3 touchdowns in every single game. It's by far the most in NFL history.
Games, right?
First player to ever do that in NFL history. He's having a season that nobody else has had. And to be able to have that ability to watch him week in and week out while the team sucks, it's a tough place to be. But at the same time, you do have to step back and say, this is something that we'll probably never have again. You can have good quarterbacks in the NFL. I don't know if you can have Joe Burrow again. You can't recreate what's happening right now in Cincinnati with Joe Burrow.
So what I want, you're absolutely right in all of it. Like, and I always fight you off air, on air about, I don't think you give enough credit to the 2-year run that we had right there. And if you asked us before that 2-year run, if we'll take 2 years of that, we'd take it every single time. All that being said, you're absolutely right. I'll say this. The Bengals have been pretty decent throughout my life.
Yeah.
Throughout my life. Like, they made 5 straight playoff appearances with Andy Dalton. They made it twice with Carson Palmer. And they've had good quarterback play. Never in my life have the Bengals before Joe Burrow. And through most of our lives, dating all the way back to the Boomer Esiason years and the Ken Anderson years, have they been thought of as true threats to win a championship before Joe? Like, even maybe that 2015 team, because the whole team was stacked. The only piece that wasn't there was probably Andy Dalton, who was playing well, but it was similar to what we see with like a Brock Purdy 49ers, who can win. But there's a reason, like, teams fear us. we talk about going in. We would be favored against, out of the 14 playoff teams, we'd be favored against 8 of them.
Yeah.
9 of them. Like, we're not. We wouldn't be favored against the Chiefs. We wouldn't be favored against the Bills. We wouldn't be favored against the Eagles or the Lions, Packers and Vikings. Other than that, that's 8 teams that we'd be favored over if we played at home, neutral, whatever it'd be. So it truly is. I just wanted to take a second to go. We've had 3 full seasons of Joe Burrow, and it's resulted in a Super Bowl run, an AFC Championship, and the best season by a Cincinnati athlete dating all the way back to the Big Red Machine.
Yeah, I think this year has made me kind of appreciate Joe more. And it's because there's been, for at least until the last 2 weeks, I haven't really been thinking about the playoffs. I mean, we've known that there's a lot of stuff that has to happen for us to get there. I've kind of put that on the back burner. It's like, let's just watch the Bengals, have some fun with the weeks we have left. And it's been an incredible stretch for him. And I think this year, arguing for other people to recognize what he's doing since we're not winning games has led me to, I don't know if it's dive deeper into the numbers or whatever it is and how good he's been, but having to tell people how great his season is instead of just being, the AFC North champs going to the Super Bowl and them all recognizing that, I think has made me appreciate it a little bit more. And hopefully every year here on out that he's in Cincy, we're competing for a Super Bowl and there's bigger things on the plate than individual awards. So this year, when the biggest thing we can fight for, at least in a sense, is individual awards, I think it's making me appreciate how great he is a little bit more. And I think when the Bengals are competing for Super Bowls, competing for AFC North championships, and being much more in the mix like we expected them to be this year, I don't think his numbers will be as good. Because I think that's going to be a result of a better defense, a better run game, a more consistent offensive line where you're not having to throw the ball and win games 45-43 and all that different stuff. So I think it's important, even though this season has been upsetting, he's been great. And I think when the Bengals are a lot better, his numbers will regress. Like, I don't think he's going to just go out and throw for 5,050 next year because if the Bengals are better, they'll be more balanced. So, yeah, I'm trying to, even if, they do go 9-8 and miss the playoffs and end up picking in the nightmare zone, then yeah, I'm still gonna remember this season forever as one of the best, most fun ones to watch from a quarterback perspective.
Yeah, I just it's unfortunate that it has to happen this year because the opportunities were there, and I'm sure we'll talk about who's responsible for that. But it's to have the ability to watch an MVP not win the MVP because of the team he's on is brutal. And that's my question to you. We talked about it Saturday. If they make the playoffs, I firmly believe that Joe Burrow not only should be MVP, but it should be unanimous. If you took away Joe Burrow from this roster, not only are they terrible, and they would be fighting for that number 1 spot, they could be. We're talking about 1 to 2 wins, maybe 3 wins. You can convince me.
So this is where I push back a little bit, and I think that the stats are unapologetically there. I think that Joe Burrow is having a year that detractors in this city of Joe are even having to acknowledge, because they like to go like, oh, you guys gave him too much credit during those 2 years. It's like, no, we gave him the right amount of credit. You're just now seeing it when the rest of the team is bad. Like he's always been this good. Maybe not this level of good, but he's always been that elite playmaker. He just hasn't had to make as many plays because the rest of the team was pretty good, so you could kind of coast to wins and stuff like that. I look at the Bengals schedule, which is truly one of the easiest in the leagues, and I wonder if Joe wasn't our quarterback, I think a lot of the wins are still there. I don't think the Broncos wins there. You can maybe take away 2, but we're still probably like a 5-win team, 4-win team. Like we still probably beat that Giants team. We still probably beat the Browns last week, the Raiders, all those. Like 5 wins is still probably there. We're not competing for a 1 seed. But Joe truly is unbelievable. He really is unbelievable. And it's awesome. And it's awesome. Hopefully we get chances to talk about exciting things going into the coming weeks. But we got to take a short one here. So we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the game. I think there was one big looming question. You said fire them all on the live stream. That one got clipped up and got sent out. We'll talk about the Zac Taylor's decision because it was a big topic of discussion inside of our Chatterbox chat about what should have been done at the end of regulation there. So we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll have more Bengals talk here on Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, 1410 Week AM. Welcome back to Off the Bench. Reed Mouse filling in for Justin Kenner. Bengals won an OT thriller over the Denver Broncos. Absolutely needed it. It's the first win the Bengals have had over a team with a winning record this year. It's the first win the Bengals have had against teams that are currently slotted in the postseason. I will say this. I just took a little bit away from Joe and saying, like, if he didn't play, I think a lot of the wins are still there. Whatever it may be, and this is where if we're going to talk about coaching, this is where I have a problem with Zac Taylor. And Trace actually put in a really good analogy for Zac Taylor, and I'll get to that in a second. But they are 1-7 against playoff teams this year. You win a couple more of those, you're in the postseason. You win one more, you're in the postseason. You win 2 more, you're comfortably, you sit firmly in there. And I had a problem with Zac Taylor a couple weeks ago because it seemed like every single game that we play a good team, we're going up against good coaches, John Harbaugh, Jim Harbaugh, Sean Payton this past Saturday, Andy Reid, all these, well-established coaches, Mike Tomlin, and it just seemed like we always came up a little bit short. And a long time ago, I heard when you win a close game, it's because of the players. When you lose a close game, it's because of the coaching. It might be an old wives' tale. It might be just a cliche you say when things like that happen. But there's probably a little bit of truth there. A lot was to do about Zac Taylor's play calling at the end of regulation, right? Chase Brown goes down at the 1 to presumably kill the clock and will kick the field goal and win it, give them no time. Everyone said, why did you just the next play score the touchdown? And I think it's pretty cut and dry. It's because we had to take a timeout with Chase Brown, no?
Right. I thought it was pretty much a no-brainer to score the touchdown.
Right.
But that's not where we're take 3 knees. They have 1 timeout. There's 2 minutes. They'd have 20 seconds left.
They would have had because we had to call a timeout. If we
If we didn't have to call a timeout.
If we had to call a timeout, that's absolutely the right call because they would have 0 seconds. They'd have it would have been the final play of regulation.
Right.
Would have kicked the field goal. But because we had to take the timeout, they would have had the ball with 40 seconds left.
No. You start the drive with a knee. It eliminates it all. You don't run the ball.
Oh, you don't run the ball with Chase.
I think that's crazy.
No, it's crazy. They'd have 20 seconds left.
You run the ball.
You kneel the ball 3 times.
Chase Brown goes down at the 1, you win that game, which is exactly what happened.
If you kneel the ball 3 times, nobody gets hurt, and you have the same plan. If your plan is to go down at the 1, there's no difference than what kneeling the ball does.
Well, you're going to score a touchdown. You're not going to kick the field goal from the 1.
If your whole plan is to have Chase Brown go down at the 1 and then kneel it out, then why would you even run the play? Why would you not kneel it 3 times?
To get the ball to the 1 so you can run a QB sneak and score a touchdown?
You want that to happen on 4th down?
No, I would have ran it right after he went down.
My
Chargers would have used a timeout, then I would have ran the clock down after that and then scored a touchdown.
But what's the difference between a field goal with 15 seconds?
I don't want to kick a field goal.
But see, this is where I disagree.
I have no desire to kick a field goal in that situation.
And that's fine, and you got proven right, because it ends up that our kicker can't make a 10-yard field goal anyway. But there's no coach in the world that doesn't take 3 knees right there and settle for a field goal with 15 seconds. There's no head coach in the league. Not one. Nobody has to score touchdowns like the Bengals do because of how horrible the defense is.
I didn't know anyone was debating that. I thought it was whether you kneel down after Chase Brown.
It's crazy to me. It's crazy to me to not take 3 knees. It's absolutely insane.
I would have been
because
incensed
you've already won the game.
So to set up the scenario here, the Bengals converted a 3rd and 6
correct
from the Denver
Chase,
17 to Jamar Chase, which then put the ball on the 6-yard line.
Yep.
And that's where he's debating
That's where
on
Elliot's saying
saying
take
that you
knees.
should just take 3
Yeah.
knees there. Denver had used their second timeout there. So it was 1 minute and 39 seconds left on the clock.
So you kneel it once.
So you're-
second down, there's 1 minute and 37. Kneel it again. It's all the way down to 58 seconds. You kneel it one more time, and you're down to 15 seconds after the made field goal. There's 12. We're talking about 12 seconds.
You'd rather
and you're
give
up
them
3?
the ball back with 15 seconds down at a field goal than
Yes,
just
I
score
would.
at the end of the game?
Yes, I would. I would rather. I would rather kick a field goal with 12 seconds.
You gave
left.
them-
And if
you
they
gave
can
them
go,
a minute
It ended
30.
at 0.
if they can go down the field in 12 seconds, if they can go down the field in 12 seconds and kick a field goal without any timeouts, credit to them. Credit to our terrible defense.
But the other option
and
is
we'll
leaving it at
lose.
0 seconds and scoring with no time on the clock.
But that's not what they were going to do.
It is.
We've already,
Chase Brown goes
we've
down,
already-
that is what you
we've-
do.
We've already said that if he would have gone down and didn't get hurt, we were going to kneel the ball. We would have ran down that clock. No or yes?
Yeah, and that would have got us.
Yeah,
And
that
you
was
would have
his
scored on the
initial-
last play of regulation.
You would not have. You would not
You
have
would
scored a
have,
touchdown.
'cause
there.
they would have used
Zach
their last
said-
touchdown.
No, Zach said in the press
the last
conference
timeout.
that he would have kicked a field goal. That was their initial plan, was to kick a field goal.
But with Chase Brown down at the 1, I disagree with that, but you're still kicking at the 1 versus the 6.
So if the no. If
You
the,
run the ball with Chase Brown on that play.
Jacob, the plan was always to kick the field goal. It was always for him to go down. So if you're going to have him risk the run and have him go down, because his plan was not to score a touchdown.
Why kneel it 3 times when you can run the ball?
Because
down
there's
at the 1 and
there's
run
no
out more time.
injury. There's no injury risk.
So you are
It's-
right that was that. In
If-
hindsight,
Jacob,
being
Jacob,
what it
if
is,
his plan, if he said after the
you're
game,
leaving time
we're
on the
gonna
clock.
score. You're leaving 12 seconds
Or
up 3.
0.
You're leaving 12 seconds up 3 without any timeouts. There's no
I'm
coach
scoring
in
on the
this
last
league.
play of the game.
There's no coach in this league that goes for a touchdown there. Not one.
I thought it was
not
great.
a
Thought it was
single
great.
coach.
no, you're right. You are right. But we weren't going for a touchdown there when we handed the ball off to
Right.
Chase Brown, which is why we told him to go down at the 1. And I also don't think that a lot of teams maybe I'm wrong. I think a lot of teams hand the ball off there, at least to get in the middle of the field and everything like that. It just happened that it was wide open for Chase and he got down to the 1. So yes. It was the wrong call to probably hand the ball off. You are right. You should probably kneel, but that's in hindsight, right? Because I think most teams still hand the ball off
No, it's
there.
not in hindsight. I said it right at the beginning. You kneel the ball. I think
I think there's very, very few teams that take a knee in that situation.
if you kneel the ball, you kick a field goal, the game's over. And Daryl's saying in the chat that I'd blame Zach no, I'm not. I don't blame Zach for Cade York shanking it off the upright. I blame Zach for his nonsense there, which coached us out of this game. I blame Zach for using 2 timeouts.
us out of the game.
For using 2 timeouts early in the 3rd quarter. That's what I blame Zach for. And I think Zach, this is the first game I've given him pretty much the benefit of the doubt. I think I've blamed him a lot on this season, but for the last half of this season, I think I've been pretty nice to the guy, because at some point I can't blame Zach for having so much ineptitude on defense that nobody can save it. I don't know what he can do about that. Zac Taylor coached the Bengals, tried to coach the Bengals out of that game. 1,000,000% he did.
Let me also say this. If your scenario were to have happened and they had, let's just say for the sake of the argument, they get 15 seconds left on the
15
clock.
seconds with no timeouts.
So they got the ball back with 1 minute and 29 seconds left. It was 1 minute and 14 seconds, and they ran no huddle. They didn't use a timeout in the first 3 plays. They got to Cincinnati's 48-yard line.
So
So they could have easily got into field goal range.
48-yard line's a field goal range?
Well, I'm saying they didn't use a timeout.
That's not field goal range.
I know, but they didn't use a timeout.
So
they would have a timeout.
They would have had 15 seconds to get in 25 yards. They would need 25 yards.
Yeah.
To at least kick a field goal. 15 seconds. It gives you 2 plays to score 25. Regardless, you are right. You are right. You should have. I think you should have need. Zach probably snafu'd that. I think that his plan wasn't the worst in the world to run the ball. Like, I think when you're running the ball, like you're right, because he got hurt and everything happened wrong. I don't think that's the end of the world to go, hey, we're going to hand the ball off to our running back, who's he's had one fumble this year. And we're going to say, hey, we're going to give it to you, not Joe Burrow, and you're going to run the ball, go down at the 1, and then we'll kick the field goal from there. He just happened to get hurt. So I think that it wasn't, like, I think that the plan was there. They just, it just happened that he got hurt. And that happens sometimes.
I have no
All
issue.
year, you dogged Zac Taylor for 3 runs and a field goal against the Ravens to win that game. Now you want to take 3 knees and kick a field goal to win this one.
It's so vastly different that it's not even in the same. That was a 50-yard field goal.
It's pretty similar.
That was a
You
50.
paid York.
He
missed the field goal you asked him to take. Just
okay,
2 minutes
and
later.
that's the hindsight we get here. But you cannot possibly think that a ball that's spotted on the 6-yard line.
That entire time I was saying, please don't score a touchdown.
I wanted a touchdown,
know
too.
who our roster is.
I wanted
don't
a
want to kick
touchdown
field
too,
goal.
and if that was the plan, if the plan was for us to run the ball and get in the end zone, then yeah, I'm for that plan. But that was not the plan.
No, you go down
the
on
plan,
the one. You make him use all the timeout.
Correct. The plan was always to never score a touchdown. The plan was
Well, we don't
he had
know that.
not.
We'll see. He said that in the
didn't-
post game,
he
but he's
said
also
that.
lied a lot of times in post games.
Okay, well then he's a liar. Then he's a loser. So I don't know what we're doing here. I'm tired of the Zach. There's nothing to defend Zach Taylor for this season. You're having the best season of all time.
I think there's plenty.
There's no reason. No.
We're not going to do that.
No.
We're not going to do that.
No, I am
Because
going to do it.
there
I am going to
is-
do it. I am going to do
because
it.
you can't
You don't get
defend-
credit for 1/3 of coaching the team. You don't get credit for it. Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase make this team. If they're not on the team, Zach Taylor's a nothing. He's a nobody. Not a thing.
You're not wrong there. Listen, I alluded to this. Trace put this in our group chat, and I think he's right. Zac Taylor is the Andy Dalton of coaching.
Yeah.
And he is. He's a fine coach. He's fine. He's not terrible, and he's not good. He's fine. And you said that you get no credit. You're not giving Zac Taylor any credit. I'm going to give Zac Taylor credit as our offensive play caller for having the best offense in franchise history. If you can't give someone credit for having the best offense in franchise history when you're the play caller, you're right. Now you're right. There's multiple facets. There's multiple facets to being a head coach. You've got to do the chemistry. You got to do the play calling, all that stuff. The one thing that drives me nuts about Zac Taylor, to where I will detract it from anything else, is the constant misappropriation of timeouts. And the reason I'm the conflict that it's the same way every single time. It's we're not getting a play in quick enough to where we got to call a timeout. And as the play caller, I need you to be decisive. I need you to be quicker on those timeouts in the second half. First half, I don't care. Use them whenever. Second half, you got to be quicker. You cannot waste timeouts in the third quarter. You cannot
Early
in
in
a
the
close
third
game.
quarter.
You cannot do that. You got to be quicker getting those plays in. We cannot have indecision. That's what it is. It's indecision. It's taking too much time to get the plays in. That's all it is. Zach, I've said this before. You threw me under the bus, and I'll own it. Defending Zach left and right. I don't care what happens with Zach. Truly do not care what happens with Zac Taylor. I know what's going to happen, and that's why I don't talk about it a whole lot. Everyone wants to always tell him that he should get fired. He should get fired. That's a nothing. That means nothing to me because he's not going to get fired. It's the same. I've made this point for 3 years now about we get to the trade deadline and we talk about it because it's sports radio and we got to talk about it for a week. Who are we going to trade? Let's go get one of these big edge rushers. Let's go get a cornerback. Let's go get another offensive lineman. Let's go do that. We have to talk about it, but it's not going to happen because they're not going to trade at the trade deadline. The only reason we made a trade this year is because we had literally no one else on the roster be our second running back. So when we sit here and we want to go fire Zac Taylor, fire Zac Taylor, fire Zac Taylor, I'm okay if he gets fired. I'm fine with it. The problem is I know it's not going to happen, so I'm not going to waste my breath talking about it. Instead, I'll lift things up. I'll give the positives of coaching. At the game on Saturday, I sat right behind this dude. Golly, I hate negative fans. And this dude sat in front of me. He had slick back hair. I think he had a Rolex on. He's wearing fancy boots, and he's sitting up. I was like, hey, man, you think you're so rich? You're sitting up in the nosebleeds with me, Bubba. And he cried. I almost said the B word. He cried about every single play in that first half, to a point where I looked at my wife, Mariana. I was like, I'm gonna kill this guy. We had this dude who had no teeth behind me who was cheering for every play. It's like, we need 60,000 of these guys and 0 of these guys at this stadium right now. But that's where I'm at with Zac Taylor. We fire him, that's fine. He's Andy Dalton. He's fine. You can talk yourself into keeping him around, and you could easily talk yourself out and moving on. It's fine. But I'm also just not going to sit here and waste my breath and talk about firing Zac Taylor, because I know for dang sure that Mike Brown's not going to pay Zac Taylor to not coach next year, and that's what would have to happen. To fire him, he'd have to pay his contract. And I know on top of that, for dang sure, Mike Brown's not going to pay one of these top-end Mike Vrabel-like coaches $12, $15 million when you got a coach who's fine for $4 or whatever Zac Taylor gets paid.
And by the way, a point for Jacob and you, and Everett made it in the chat. Joe Burrow likes Zac Taylor, and that's the part of it all where, as a fan who wants to see Joe Burrow succeed, it's very, very frustrating. Because if Joe Burrow, I want to make something very clear. If Joe Burrow wanted him gone, and Jacob and I have had this discussion multiple times.
He'd be gone at the day's end.
He'd be gone within, I think Jacob's made it, he'd be gone before the conversation ended.
Yeah.
That's how fast he'd be gone. So if Joe Burrow wanted that, he'd have that. Because it's an easy decision by the front office. Nobody cares about Zac Taylor, as Reed has just made a point about. My issue is that, again, it feels at times that he's holding this team back, and he held that team back on Saturday. There's no doubt about it. What? Those 2 timeouts that were so early in the third quarter, unbelievable timeout calling.
So I'm at the point now, because like I said, with the timeouts, and they drive me bananas, and it's from indecision. Don't get it twisted of why we're taking those calls.
Yeah.
It's because Zac isn't getting the plays in quick enough. So then they're scrambling, and then they look at the clock. Oh, we ran out of time. I'm at the point now when it's third quarter, unless we're in plus territory, unless we're in kicking range and it's 3rd and 6 and a 5-yard penalty takes us out of field goal range, which it seemingly thinks everything's going to take us out of field goal range.
3rd and 17, dude. He called a timeout on 3rd and now. Granted, they got it, but it was 3rd and 17. Right. There is no reason to call a timeout in that spot.
In the first 2 quarters, call the timeouts. Right. Yeah. Don't take the penalty. First 2 quarters, call the timeouts, get the right play in, and like that. In the second half, we need those, babe. We need those puppies. We need them. And it all worked out. Everything seemingly worked out on Saturday. Here's what, and now I'm going down a different rabbit hole. Does it feel like this season, all these close games, all this crazy stuff happening, does it feel like it's just the inverse? It's just everything coming back to find its level in terms of luck? Because we were called the luckiest team in football on that 2-year playoff run. We talk about this all the time in baseball. I think the 2023 Marlins were like 30-8 in 1-run games. Yeah. And everyone was like, all right, this doesn't seem sustainable. We got all those interceptions and turnovers in the postseason, and it really did. We did have a lot of luck. I will argue that the Chiefs seemingly have a lot of luck all the time, and it seems that the best teams, the Patriots, and I'm sure the 90s Cowboys were really lucky too. But to me, it almost just feels like it just kind of came back to this level, right? Yeah. We had our luck in that 2-year run. Now we're coming back to where if we can just win one of those games, one of those other games that just, how did we lose? 4th and 16, 2 10-point leads against the Ravens at home. The Chargers make a field goal, all that stuff that just seems unlucky. It follows, it just found its level. And now we got a blank slate going into next year. Now it's a blank slate of
we didn't get any. I mean, there was one play of luck that happened this season for the Cincinnati Bengals, and it was the blocked punt miracle.
One of the luckier plays, maybe ever.
It was truly
didn't know the rule.
It was by a former Bengal, right? Wasn't it?
Yeah, Nick Vigil was right.
Yeah, wasn't that?
Correct.
So just nothing went our way. I mean, and by the way, and as we wind down this segment, our kicking situation is so disgusting. And shout out to Ryan Rico, doesn't matter. He's phenomenal. That guy's great.
He's a good punter.
The kicking situation has to be addressed next year. You can't play football without a kicker. It just can't happen. So whatever's going to happen next year, it's going to have to start with Evan McPherson, and that's the least of our problems. As ironic as it all is, you can't play football without a kicker. You have a defense that needs so much help. An offensive line. This offensive line is going to give up maybe as many sacks as he had in 2021. I think he had 50 sacks in 2021. He's at 44 right now. He can absolutely get the same amount of sacks as that season with one of the worst offensive lines in league history.
So our line is, you're right, it's bad. And I just talked about how great it's been to where you.
It's been okay.
It's Joe.
Barry Smith has been great.
Joe has been so much better. He's played so much better behind this line that you just don't a lot of times don't even recognize how bad the line is. We are in a much better spot offensive line wise now than we were 3 years ago. Like that's 100% true. Orlando Brown's a good tackle. He's a pretty good tackle. Mims looks to be a guy that can be here for a really long time protecting Joe Burrow. So that's where I will be a little positive. Now the rest of it needs some work. But the two most important pieces, the guys on the end, that's better. And we're in a much better spot. So that's good. That's good.
And that's what I wanted to add. And we'll end this segment, ESPN 1410 Wing AM. And my question to you guys is, do you believe that Zac Taylor, as the head coach of this football team, somebody with a lot of say, do you think he's going to be able to build up this team for next season? Do you think he's going to have the team ready? Do you think he's going to be able to convince Duke Tobin to be able to spend some money, get the job done, and fix every hole that this roster has? I don't know if that's possible. I'm going to ask you guys that back when we come back. ESPN 1410, Wing AM, Chatterbox Sports Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers.
Reed Mouse filling in for Justin Kinner, Jacob Tissett, Elliot Rear, and Casey McAllister in the room. Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers on 1410 Wing AM. Segment number 5 here in the second hour. You queued up a question about going into next year, and though I don't want to completely subside it, I think there's plenty of time to talk about next year when we get into the postseason. There is one question that's kind of loomed over my head since Saturday that I want to ask you guys. We look back, Bengals are 8-8. 1 point we're 1-4. They're currently 1 point we're 4-8. Now they're 8-8. There's about 7 games that come to your mind, and if it just goes the other way, the Bengals win one more game, we're currently sitting in a postseason spot. We just need a win on Saturday, and you absolutely clinch it. If we would have beaten the Chargers, it would have already been clinched. When you look back at the season, there's one that seems like a pretty easy answer. When you look back at the season, what game do you wish you can get back? What game do you wish you can just take?
There's a lot of them. For me,
there's an easy answer.
Looking right now, it's the Chargers. But
oh, really? I thought you for sure.
Well,
it's the team picking first overall in the draft with 3 wins.
So that one obviously is one for me. But if you beat the in spite of everything, if you beat the Chargers, you're in the playoffs right now.
That is true.
So that's the one for me that stands out. I say the Patriots. You guys know this. I say the Patriots every week. But maybe it's just, and that's another knock on Zac Taylor, which is why I don't think he's for the future of the team. He didn't get the team ready to play for Week 1 against the Patriots, and it cost him. It bit him in the butt for the first time in his career. So we'll see if that plays a different approach next year. But the Chargers one, to me, if Evan McPherson did his job half the time in that game,
right,
you win the game, you're in the playoffs. You probably still have to win this one. No, you wouldn't have to win this one. No,
if we would have beat the Chargers, we'd be in the postseason. Correct.
So that's the one I'm going to pick.
I'm going to go a different route. You're definitely right because we would have clinched. I think big picture, we make that kick against the Ravens at home.
You know what's funny?
The whole season changes.
I think the vibes.
Because you beat the Giants and the Browns the next 2 weeks. You're then sitting at 4-3. Yeah.
If we would have beaten the Ravens, it's funny. We talk about how Zach didn't try to push the ball at all. Settled up for, what was it, 53-yarder?
Yeah. At that point, we did still think we had Money Mac, though.
Yeah.
We didn't know he was
We didn't know he was we didn't know.
I went back and I watched a playoff game, one of the playoff games. It was the Titans game. The exact same scenario happened in that game. I don't know if we realized this. The exact same scenario happened to where we get the ball, we push it downfield to where we are at a 53-yard field goal. And what did we do? We just ran the ball 3 times and just said, this is good enough. And then we kicked the 53. Yeah. The difference was we made it. We made that one. And we missed it with Money Mac. So you're right. I'm with Elliot. If there's a game, well, there's multiple answers here, right? Because if you need to win a game,
the Chiefs are playing their starters this week.
Yeah, if you get the 2-point conversion against the Ravens.
Yeah.
if we get one more stab, right? If that's the scenario to where we get to replay the game right now, it's clearly the Patriots because that's an easy win.
Yeah.
And then you're looking on the outside looking at them. You can call the Chiefs game and say there's one play why we didn't win that game. I don't like when people say that because a football game's it's 60 minutes, sometimes longer. So I don't like to say, oh, that one play is what lost us. There was one play why we lost to the Chiefs. Like literally one play. We should have won that game. And then you mentioned it. You beat the Ravens the first time we played them. Changes the complexion of the season. I would argue it'd be the same way if we beat the Chiefs.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I'd argue
for sure.
the same way to beat the Chiefs. But it is just silly that we are on the one side outside looking in. Out of everything, I thought Elliot, you would be the most excited because you'd been fighting me and Jacob for a year and a half now when I talk about I don't care about slow starts because I want them to play well at the end of the season, and it hasn't hurt the Bengals yet. This is the first year where it's hurt the Bengals. Yeah. And it's the exact same thing. They weren't ready to play at the beginning of the year, and they're by far playing their best football on both sides of the ball. The defense this is the best they've looked all year against bad teams up until this week. But this is the best they've looked all year. And, yeah, it's finally coming to nip us in the bud.
As we just yelled at each other the last segment about, I just don't think it's going to matter. I don't think he's going to get fired as much as I want it to happen. I don't think it's going to happen. So I can't, I like next year when it inevitably happens again, because it happens every single time, then what happens? Then what do you do? When you lose, because I don't know what the schedule is going to look like next year, and we don't know that. We're going to have, most likely, we're going to be playing, in fact, we will be playing the third-ranked team in each division or whatever that is. So, we're going to have a third-place schedule and all that stuff. So I'm gonna hope that it changes. I'm gonna hope that they take a hard look in the mirror, Zac Taylor and his coaching staff this season, because I do think Lou's gone. I don't think anybody can save Lou at this point.
I don't know if Lou's gone.
I'm at about a 60% chance they're not firing him.
Really?
Yeah. Closer to 70.
Now,
maybe.
if they make the playoffs, then it's a different story. If they make the playoffs, you might as well erase everything that we've already said, because Zac Taylor's back, Lou Anarumo's back, everybody's back, and there probably honestly wouldn't be change. I'd venture to say that. But heading into next season, if they start slow again, then my point remains, and it's that Zac Taylor can't coach this team any longer. He's costing us too many games. You're wasting prime Joe Burrow, and it can't happen like that. I hope it does. I hope for the sake of this city. I hope for the sake of the morale in the locker room. I hope that stays. And by the way, I've been very mean to Zac Taylor for the past couple nights now. One thing that I'll give Zac Taylor here, the team didn't quit. They could have rolled over after that.
I think that matters too.
They could have rolled over and died after that Steelers game. They could have. They could have packed it in like Sheldon Rankins, and they could have quit. We're all sick. We've got COVID. We're not playing anymore. They didn't. They fought, and they've kept fighting. I know it's not against the world's best teams, but they've continued to maintain that fight, that drive for the playoffs with every odds that have been stacked against us. So that's the one positive I'll give Zac Taylor.
Zach, if anything's consistent, and that the team, and this is a good thing, and I'll keep saying that. I wish they would play better at the beginning of the year, but if you ask me, hey, when do you want to play your best football? I will always say I want it at the back end of the schedule, and that's what Zac Taylor has done literally every year he's coached.
Okay.
Literally every year he's coached.
All right, then what about this? New head coach for the first 4 weeks, and then Zac Taylor gets it. Then Zac Taylor gets the rest of the way.
We do a little
interim head coach for 4 weeks, and then Zac Taylor takes over.
Zach has won week 1 once.
It's pretty bad.
Do you want to know what year it was? Give you a hint.
It was against the Vikings, right?
Yeah, we played the last game of the year. It was the year we went to the Super Bowl. It was the only year that we won week 1.
Oh, would you look at that?
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, that year, we always talk about they start slow. That year, they actually didn't. That year, they played really bad at the like middle of November to the beginning of like they were like 7-4.
Yeah.
And then we like all of a sudden like lost 3 in a row, and we're like, oh God, is this gonna come down to the final week of the year?
I brought some stats in. The Bengals will be facing the Steelers on the road Saturday night. The game was flexed to 8 p.m. I like that. Do you guys? I imagine a lot of you guys like it as well. I like having.
Like it in what way?
I like it that we're able to focus on the Bengals solely. Because I didn't want the Bengals, Dolphins, and Broncos, Chiefs all happening at 4 o'clock on Sunday.
I think it's an all-time screwing of the Bengals by the NFL.
Really?
We are the first team in NFL history to play 5 road primetime games.
I did see that. So
We lost our home AFC North primetime game, and now we're getting another road one.
That is wild.
Like,
I mean,
the AFC North primetime road games do not go to the away team.
Road teams are 2-13 since 2019. The Bengals now put into 5 of the last 8 and haven't been a beneficiary since 2020.
That's what it gets crazy.
So I think it's bad. I think you're 100% right.
I'm on you. I like a lone game.
Saying that, they show up in prime time. Every time the offense is there and they put on a show.
I don't know if the Bengals are the most fun team in the league. Like they should beg us to play all these primetime games because we're going to put up a bunch of points and we're going to give up a bunch of points and we're a fun game. I will admit this, and the more I thought about it, the more I think it's less likely to happen. There's a chance in which the Ravens play before us. They play the Browns. They win. They're 18-point favorites against the Browns.
18.
They win because they'll be playing for at least a half because they've got to lock up the AFC North. If they lose, then the Steelers can win and win the AFC North. So they'll play that game. They'll win by a bunch. The Steelers already clinched their postseason spot. They still have a little something to play with. But people are going, oh, the Steelers might rest their starters for that final game.
If the Steelers lose and the Chargers win, they flip.
Correct. So that's why they will play. But there are people suggesting that the Steelers might not play their guys just to give them at least a few guys just to give them rest. That'd be silly because if they lose and they get the 6th seed, then they got to go to Baltimore. If they win, they go to Houston. I don't want the Steelers to rest their starters.
I'm with you.
Because more than likely, the Cincinnati Bengals are not going to make the postseason. I mean, it's what, a 15% chance? 1 in 10, 1 in 8.5, whatever it is. I want to see a competitive game. Like I don't want to see us, and it would be, even if they rest their starters, it'd be Justin Fields, who's a competent quarterback, one of the better backups in the league. But I want to fight with the Steelers for one last game. If it's our last game of the year, I want to fight. I want to have one fun game to go. And if we lose, we lose. We win, whatever. But I do not want to see the backups for the Steelers play because I want a competitive game. I want a fun game.
I'm with you for sure. No question about it. The likelihood the Bengals make the playoffs, I mean, I'm talking myself into it. I'm really trying here.
16-1.
Man, it's not looking great. And if I can get a playoff game out of it in terms of, prime time, watching the Bengals in Pittsburgh, like winning this game without knowing what happens before us, which is a huge part of it. If we win on Saturday night, it's going to feel like a playoff win. And then I'm going to get to watch Sunday's games very intently, which will be fun as well. So, yeah, I really do hope they play their starters.
I really don't want to play backups. I want to play their best players, and I want to beat the Steelers with their best players. I can't have that either. All the local Steelers fans we didn't play anyone. Who cares he beat us? I want to kick their tail. That's what I want.
I'm going to be honest. I wouldn't mind playing the backups. I wouldn't mind it. Give me a 20-point little victory in Pittsburgh. By the way, they wouldn't win by 20. They don't win, but this team doesn't win by any game by 20.
That's what I don't care. I was saying, Steelers backups, Fields instead of Russ, Jalen Warren instead of Najee.
Yeah, those guys are better.
Calvin Austin instead of George Pickens fighting people.
And the Steelers are playing bad football right now. So that's one thing you have to hang. Ever since Russell Wilson set his career best against the Bengals, they've been pretty much fighting to stay level, or at least.
So you'd rather play an easy win. You'd rather get the
1,000,000%. Because if we're saying we already don't have a good chance, I'd rather take the best chance.
But if this is the last Bengals, I'm with you. If it was
less things had to happen.
Right, yeah. If it was just we need to win and the Jets need to beat the Dolphins, I'm in. I'm all in. Yeah, play nobody. Have Mike Tomlin suit up. Have him play linebacker or something like that. I don't even know what position Mike Tomlin played back when he played. But yeah, I'm on board with that. But the fact that we need a Broncos team to lose as 9-point favorites, and we need a drug addict to win a game against the Dolphins, and like 7 things need it. It's only 2, but I want to beat the Steelers. That's where I'm at. Like I'm going to take a 9-8. I want to beat a good team. Final week of the year in their house, do something that no other team does, and that's win primetime road AFC North playoff games. And I want to remind people before we get to the postseason, be like, oh yeah, that's why you didn't want us to sneak in. Because you are scared of us. Because we are a good team. Because we'd be favored against 8 of the 14 teams that are making the postseason. Because if the Bengals do get in as the 7th seed, they'd be the best 7th seed in NFL history. Now it's only 4 years.
Is this the best team to miss the playoffs in NFL history? Is this the best?
No, 2010 Chargers.
Is this the best quarterback in NFL history?
Yeah.
Best quarterback season.
Drew Brees did it a lot. Well, yeah. What was that?
Drew Brees had a 5K that missed it.
You know the story about the 2010 Chargers? They had the number 1 offense in the league and the number 1 defense in the league, and they missed the postseason.
Oh my!
Number 32 special teams.
What was the record?
10-6.
I think like 10 wins. Yeah.
Yeah, it's 10-6.
Also, it wasn't the 7th spot. Like they would have gotten into the 7th spot.
Yeah, they would have gotten 6. It's crazy. I just want to beat the Steelers, and I want to beat them at full strength. That's where I'm at. I want to have a good game. I want to watch. This is the last time I get to watch the Bengals for 9 months. I want it to be a competitive game, and I want to kick their tail.
In your heart of hearts,
yeah.
Do you think it's more likely that the Jets beat the Dolphins or the
Jets
Chiefs?
beat the Dolphins?
Because I think that Carson Wentz, it'll be Carson Wentz, Kareem Hunt, and some variation of Juju Smith-Schuster and Noah Gray. Like the Chiefs will have guys that can play. And my argument against it is I still don't buy what the Broncos are selling.
Carson Wentz was the MVP like 5 years ago.
Well, here's my thing with Carson Wentz too. Carson Wentz sees what Sam Darnold's doing, his buddy Sam Darnold. He sees what Baker Mayfield's doing. The league is not out of question for Carson. Maybe he's fighting for a job. I think it's an audition, and if you look at it from that standpoint, I think there's a solid chance that the Broncos choke. The Colts, I knew the Colts were going to choke because the Colts every single season choke. I don't care who they play on their schedule. It doesn't matter who their quarterback is. I don't give a damn. They don't win when the going gets tough. I think the Miami Dolphins going to New York is going to be a tough game, especially given the fact that I don't know what the hell's going on with Tua. So even if Tua's there, he doesn't play well in the cold weather.
It's going to be 30 degrees.
If they don't have Tua, they have a backup quarterback who's not very good. Respectfully, Casey, yeah. I say that with love and respect. I think there's a chance Carson Wentz gets it done. And the Chiefs wouldn't be mad at it because the Chiefs would be 16-1. They'd be the first 16-1 team in NFL history. That's not nothing. I think there's more incentive for the Chiefs to win that game.
The second team to win 16 games?
Yes. Honest to God, the only reason they wouldn't want to win that game is if Luke Brenneman is right and they're trying to keep the Bengals out because the Bengals are legitimately the only threat.
So I'm not going to tell the Kansas City Chiefs how to run their organization because they clearly are the best in the NFL at doing it. They were back-to-back Super Bowl champs, and they are the betting odds favorites to win this year and three-peat it. And they probably will. They've been to 7 straight AFC championships. They're just really well run. Andy Reid knows what the heck he's doing when it comes to coaching. I can't wrap my brain around. They will not play. If their starters do not play, their starters will have gone 25 days without playing a football game.
Yeah.
Because it was December 25th. So the divisional round is January 19th. 25 days. That's almost 4 weeks. That is almost 4 weeks. 3.5 weeks, their starters will not play football. That's a long break. It makes a lot of sense. Don't play Patrick. I don't think anyone is expecting Patrick Mahomes to play, especially he's a little banged up. Give him rest, whatever. But how can you not play most of your starters at least a half? At least go out there and be like, hey, let's run a couple drives. Let's stay loose. But
the other nugget no one talks about that, I mean, obviously when we talk about rivalries in the NFL, Bengals-Chiefs is towards the top of the list now, but we're talking about them resting starters against a divisional rival and letting that divisional rival get into the playoffs by giving them a win. Think about how you'd feel if the Bengals were doing that with a spot locked up and letting the Steelers or the Ravens into the playoffs. I mean, Chiefs-Broncos is a pretty big rivalry in the NFL. I know the Broncos have struggled lately, but I mean, in the Manning days against Alex Smith, that was a big deal. And now we're talking about the Chiefs laying down for a divisional rival. I don't know. I think that could potentially play into it as well. Maybe we see those starters or a collection of those starters for a quarter or a half, and it's enough points to get enough lead that the Broncos can't come back. I don't know, but I'm holding out hope for that game. My worry with the Jets is, do they pull Aaron Rodgers and not even play him and play Tyrod, because Rodgers has no interest in getting them a better draft pick, and I think they could get in Tyrod's ear.
So it looks like
it comes down to if the 15-year-olds that run that Jets organization are like, his Madden rating went down. Crazy story. I mean, we talk about how bad it is here in Cincinnati with Mike Brown. Can you imagine a story coming out that Mike Brown's taking advice from his 15-year-old kids that are just looking at Madden ratings? Crazy. But go on.
I was going to say, it looks like, it looks like there are a couple incentives for the Chiefs I found here. DeAndre Hopkins is, I think, 9 catches away from a massive bonus. Maybe Chris Jones is playing for a massive bonus.
Chris Jones will not play.
He didn't play last week.
Yeah, he's banged up. Chris Jones and Patrick Mahomes will not. So the best 2 players aren't playing regardless.
Okay. We're holding out hope for like the Pacheco, Kelsey, George Karlaftis.
I think we want Kareem Hunt. Pacheco's looked terrible since he's been back.
But both of them over just Kareem Hunt.
True.
I'm more worried about
DeAndre
Hopkins. I want their
Hopkins,
starting linemen.
Line is a big deal.
Yeah.
And then they don't have a starting tackle, which makes me think they're all going to play, because they got to figure out who's the starting tackle by the playoffs.
I think their line has to play anyways, because it's bad. They have a really bad offensive line.
Yes.
I think there's a shot. I think there's more than enough of a shot that the Bengals have here to get in. We'll see. And it would take a miracle. You talk about not being lucky all year and then getting very, very, very lucky.
Do they play at the same time? No, it's the Jets and Dolphins play 1, right?
No, I think they're both.
I think they're all at 4.
Oh, they're both at 4.
Which I don't like. I would rather go.
I wish it was separate.
I'd rather go one at a time, but
so we can just be like, all right, it's over.
All right. One final segment when we come back. ESPN 1410 Wing AM. No more.
I think that was 6. No?
I think that was.
That was 6.
Yeah.
Casey, was that 6?
Yeah, that was 6 seconds.
I think that was 5, right?
I think it was 5.
I think that was 5.
We got halvesies in the room here.
ESPN 1410 Wing AM. We'll be right back.
Maybe.
Welcome back to Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. We're not sure if this one's going to make it to radio, but we're going to do it like it is.
That's right.
We're going to do it like it is, and here's what we're going to do.
Do it live.
We're gonna go back on the YouTube side after this segment and talk more about the Bengals and all the postseason stuff. We might even talk a little bit of college. But I proposed this guy to these guys before we started, and I said, hey, I don't know if you guys are big. New Year's Eve is tomorrow. I don't know if you guys are big New Year's resolution guys. I'll tell you mine. I'll start it off, and I'll tell you guys my resolution, and it's just to be a little healthier. I want to look better. I feel like this was put on some weight. I got bags underneath my eyes. I just want to look a little better. I just want to be a little healthier. That's my New Year's resolution. I'm also big proponent of vague resolutions.
Yep.
I don't like, I got to lose 15 pounds. I got to do this. A couple years ago, I just said I wanted to be more athletic. And I did it. Or I wanted to be, I think one year I wanted to have an entrepreneurial spirit. And I started cutting grass on the side, and my wife opened up a store. So that was a good year. So I like doing vagues. You guys big New Year's resolution guys?
I'm not. I never write anything down or do anything like that. I usually steal them from people. If I hear a good one, I'll take it. Last year, one of the podcasts I listened to, he promised to eat more blizzards. So I also ate more blizzards last year. And it's just stuff like that.
By the way,
blizzards rock. You can DoorDash them.
Blizzards. That's the best ice cream concoction in the game.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a Hamiltonian, so everyone talks about flubs and their cyclones and everything like that. McFlurries. Blizzards are the best in the game. Best in the game.
Freddy's custards are the best in the game, but
who's?
No free ads, but Freddy's.
I don't know
Frozen
who that
custards.
is.
They're the best in the game. Never had a Freddy's?
Never had Freddy.
Oh, like the burger place?
Yeah.
Oh, Casey.
Oh,
that's a terrible take.
That's not even the best custard.
That's not even the best custard at a flat burger restaurant.
Oh, no, Casey.
Come on.
Culver's.
Come on.
Culver's laps Freddy's.
Oh, no, Casey.
I don't know about that.
And Steak and Shake back in the day. Their shakes were certainly better.
My favorite thing, and I realized this at college, was that every town, no matter how different,
Yeah.
and they all do the same thing. So I realized this in college that I had 60 teammates because that's how Bluffton gets people to go to their school. They promise you're going to play college athletics, and 40 of the kids never were going to play. But you talk to all these kids and you figure out something. Every kid's town has the best ice cream ever. Even when I get to Bluffton, you got to try the Bluffton Dairy Freeze. It's the best ice cream ever. I worked in Van Wert for a year. Best ice cream ever. I lived in Lima when I worked in Van Wert. This local place. Best ice cream ever. I've been to a dozen of them. Here in Westchester, you got the Whip. Hamilton, you got Flubs. All these. It's all the same, Bubba. It's all the same. It's they put soft serve ice cream. They put some Reese's, and it just stirs on up. But for whatever reason, Blizzards have it figured out. Secondly, every kid that was from Ohio told me that their town was the Midwest capital in some drug. It was because when I grew up here in Hamilton, like, you know that we're like the Midwest capital in heroin. We're like, oh yeah. So I go to college and I'm like, yeah, I'm from Hamilton. It's kind of a rundown city. It's the Midwest capital of heroin. And like, oh, I'm from Bucyrus, Ohio. It's the Midwest capital in meth. And then they're like, I'm from North Baltimore. We're the Midwest capital and human trafficking. It's just like they're just all these terrible things that everyone just tells themselves that they're the Midwest capital. Elliot, your New Year's resolution?
It's going to be probably the same as yours. I think Reed looks, pretty good as of right now. If I get in shape, I'll have a good year. Casey and I tried to do it last year. Maybe we can try to do it this year again. You and I went to Planet Fitness here for a couple times, and we tried our best.
Yeah. I went for about a month.
That ended quickly. So if I could do that again this year, that's what I'm going to say. That's what I'm going to say. We're going to try it again.
Planet Fitness. People that like work out a lot always make fun of the people that like January hits and it's packed, the gym's packed. Yeah. Don't make fun of people trying to better their life, but it is a little funny that like you go to Planet Fitness in August.
Yeah.
12 people in there. I'll go to Planet Fitness later today.
Yeah.
Later today. There will be, every treadmill will be used, every stair stepper, you can't get a dumbbell. It's a little ridiculous, but I'm not going to make fun of people for trying to better their lives. But another fun thing about every small town, every place is fast. Mexican place tastes the same. Every place is local Chinese place pretty much tastes the same.
We should go back to your Mexican restaurant that you took us to that one time. I like that.
The one, the new, we call that New Mexican here in Hamilton.
Really? Yeah. I like that one. But yeah, that's probably mine. Casey?
Got a New Year's resolution? You're going to be life-changing stuff here next year.
Yeah.
Do steroids.
You should do steroids.
What if we all take the New Year's resolution to do steroids? We all just get jacked?
Could you imagine?
That'd be sick.
Could you imagine the ratings on this show?
Yeah, we just do it shirtless and juiced.
Yeah.
So
meatheads. I like it.
When I was 18, there's two times in my life where I was in the best shape. It was when I lived in Lima, and then when I was 18, and I didn't play sports in the fall, so I just worked out all the time. And I had no clue what I was doing. I was just putting random things into my body. I was taking creatine, protein shakes. I was doing mass gainer I bought this bottle of pills from Walmart. It was not even from like GMC or anything like that. It was from Walmart. It was testosterone boosters. No clue. I was just like, yeah, sure, just throw it in there. And I was taking testosterone boosters for like 2 weeks.
Nice. Energetics Total T.
I had no clue what I was throwing anything in my body. I did go into a GNC one time, and he quickly sold me on this pack of pills. I took like 6 pills a day. Like, it was crazy what I was doing back then. But go on, Casey.
I don't know. I've been thinking about it a little bit. I think, getting more done in the morning. Like, I feel like I waste my mornings quite a bit. So
I would never change that.
So I think I'm going to start waking up much earlier than I already do. Mm-hmm. And just coming in and doing more stuff in the mornings. That also includes working out possibly again in the mornings like I was at Planet Fitness. But
I've given up because I know that if you're going to work out in the morning regularly, you've just got to do it, and it'd be so much better for everything. Like, because you don't waste time in the middle of the day to go work out. Just don't got it in me. And in fact, I've stopped lying to myself about it. Like, for a while there, it's like I'm gonna start waking up at 7, going to work out, and then I'll go into work and everything. I'm giving up on it. It's not gonna happen. It's not in the cards. I'm not waking up at 7 in the morning. But that does it for us here on Off the Bench. It was a fun show, guys.
It was.
I'm gonna be here Thursday. No show tomorrow. or on New Year's Day. But I'll be here Thursday, back in the saddle. We'll talk about college football and all the results. We're going to do a little YouTube stuff. We'll get back to the Bengals or college. I think I took us off on our rocker when we did New Year's resolutions, but it is what it is. Thank you so much for welcoming me.
One more thing before we get off. We will have Chatterbox Bengals tomorrow night. We're going to pre-record it, and we'll release it at the normal time for you guys tomorrow night. So even though there's no off the bench, still make sure you come to the channel and check out Chatterbox Bengals tomorrow.
Chatterbox, we might have something. I might mess around and just come in here for an hour and goof off for an hour.
Oh, and also I didn't crown the winner. I did a trivia contest on the stream on Saturday. So every time during commercial, I'd ask one trivia question. It was Michael Ackley who walked away victorious.
Very nice. What does he win?
Nothing. But I'll tell you what. Thank you, Mike, for participating. I see Ron. Ron had 2. He was in second place, tied with David and. I forget who else. RoboBuck. RoboBuck is a constant member there. So shout out to everybody who played trivia with me on Saturday. But he's the winner, and we will have box lunch after the actual show ends.
Yep. All right.
Oh, who is the fantasy champ? Actually,
That's a great question.
we have to find. We'll find that out once the show ends.
So I've rejected your solution for fantasy.
Did it not go your way?
It did not go my way, so I rejected it.
Okay.
I just I was like, I didn't. I lost my first round. So me and Casey on the app are currently battling out the championship, and I'm currently beating Casey.
There we
going
go.
into the final week.
We'll have 2 champions.
Yes. I will UCF this championship.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Thank you, guys. We're going to go to YouTube. This has been Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers, 1410 Wing AM. So there's a lot of things going on in the National Football League right now. I said we talk about Bengals. I'm just going to let this, in the final 20 minutes of the show, just kind of go where it needs to be. There's one thing. I saw Everett Henry talking about it, and I know. Stay with me here. 124 in the chat. Stay with me here. I know I do the Ohio State hater thing a lot. I'm not going to do the CJ Stroud sucks thing, though, because he's going to be fine. I truly think it's a sophomore slump. I think he showed too much last year and early parts of this year to be bad. I know that a lot of Ohio State haters want to just bag on him and everything like that. I'm not going to do that. Now I will, in jest of doing. You guys got to give up the Justin Fields stuff.
No,
you got to give up the Justin Fields stuff. But C.J. Stroud will be fine. He's playing truly terrible, though.
Yeah, he's been horrible.
He's been very, very, very bad. He's gonna. We quickly wanted to put him going into the elite category. I think that might be done. I don't think he'll ever get to the elite quarterback, but I think he'll be a good quarterback in this league for years and years to come.
Yeah.
Don't jump off the CJ Stroud stuff.
Look, Justin Fields is the best quarterback on a 10-win AFC team. So, I don't know. Use that for what you will. I think he's got a shot. Yeah, no, CJ's going to be fine. I think the biggest thing that's hurt him this year is Bryce kind of coming on as of late, and everyone's saying, oh, maybe – not only were we wrong about CJ, but we were wrong about Bryce, and the Panthers actually got it right. And I just think it's kind of been a perfect storm for him to be let down this year with the expectations a lot of people put on him. But, yeah, the Texans are still winning their division. They're going to have a home playoff game. They'll probably have 10 wins. It's a pretty good season for, your second year to win 2 division championships.
His team has also changed, and that Texans
had a lot of
injuries
injuries.
So much. You lose Stephon Diggs early. You lose Nico early for a long period of time. You just lost Tank Dell. And I think the offense, too, has changed with Joe Mixon. And this is why that a lot of people don't like to pay running backs, is because you pay your running back and you switch your offense to this run-heavy scheme where if Joe Mixon has a bad game, what do you do now? Because it's every game.
They were run heavy last year. It was just better because they had a more effective running back.
True.
The thing about Joe Mixon, Joe Mixon truly is a crazy running back because he'll go for 170 and look unstoppable, and then he'll go 20 rushes, 36 yards, and you're like, what the heck is going on? He did that with the Bengals all the time. There would be times where he'd be like, oh, this dude, you can't touch this guy. He's big, he's fast, and then there'd be just games on tops of games where you're just like, what, Joe? That trade. You get Joe Mixon for a 7th-round pick, 6th-round pick, and then you sign him to an extension. That made no sense. The Texans are an example of that. You can't. I don't think you can win exclusively through free agency. Like they built a great foundation through the draft and everything like that, and then they thought, oh, if we go get this guy and free agency and all this stuff, and you quickly find out that the teams that win in this league just draft well. You get an elite quarterback, you draft well. You keep doing that, you keep winning. You got to develop too, and that's the one thing about Cincinnati that maybe concerns me more than drafting well is we don't develop very well. You see these just no names go to Kansas City, to the Vikings, and they just play well. So that's what concerns me with Cincinnati more than anything. But yeah, it just shows you that you can't just pick good players out for whatever reason in the NFL as opposed to other sports. You just can't just keep bringing in good players and expect them to flourish. Expect that you got to have, for some reason, just draft well.
My relative pushback to that, and I totally agree, but going into this offseason, I want to do that for our defense. Like, I don't want to use our draft picks to try to fix this defense.
Because we can't develop.
Right, we can't develop. Yeah. So I want to go out and spend every dollar that we don't spend on T. Higgins and Mike Gesicki on the defense and then use the draft picks on the offense. And I guess that is still a mixture, and you're not just going all the way in on free agency. But that's kind of where I've been at looking big picture this offseason. Obviously, we're still kind of looking at playoffs, but realistically, it's like we got to draft offensively because I think Joe can elevate young talent more than you can rely on them to be instant success on defense. Yeah. And that's why I want to spend this money on defense, because even if you miss, spend the money. I'll give you a pass if you spend the money. Yeah. Go get top-end talent. And if it fails, it fails.
Can we talk about how the Bengals – sans Jesse Bates, and I'm not going to fight that fight today. Sans Jesse Bates. The Bengals have done a pretty good job at letting talent walk.
Yeah.
Like Joe Mixon, whatever, right? He's played well this year, but Chase Brown fits our offense way better. Like our offense looks way better with Chase Brown, and I think Chase Brown's gonna. If he doesn't, he's probably not gonna play this week. I don't know how bad his.
He's questionable.
They said he's optimistic. I heard.
But if he would have played this week, he would have had 1,000 yards rushing and like 400 yards receiving, which I think is on par with the best season that Joe Mixon ever had. And he only started 10 or 11 of the 17 games. Tyler Boyd, nothing. Von Bell, we immediately got back. Awuzie's fine. Awuzie is fine in the Titans. He's fine. Hayden Hurst has bounced around. CJ Uzama's a nothing. Like, they've done a really good job, actually, at letting guys walk. DJ Reader, we'll see what happens there. He had
a great Christmas Day, and everyone thought it was crazy we let him walk. And
Thanksgiving Day.
Those are the only 2 sacks he has in the year.
Right.
Like,
I think he had 2 sacks in his entire tenure as a Bengal.
Yeah.
And he had 2 on that day.
Standalone games kill you, man. They can kill the narratives for some players.
Chase Brown has 3 less rushing yards and on 11 less attempts than Joe Mixon. He would if he plays this year, if he plays this week, he will have more rushing yards than Joe Mixon.
The other thing that we got to talk about when we're talking about Chase Brown's season, because we're talking about all these statistics and how close he is to passing Joe Mixon's best season and 1,000 yards rushing. Zach Moss was the running back 1 for 6 weeks.
Right. No, that's what I'm saying. He only started. Chase Brown got what? Started getting like he had no snaps at the beginning of the
None.
Game. And then, like, week 3, we started giving him half the snaps. And then by, like, week 6, it was like, all right, Chase Brown's our starter.
This is pretty clear.
3 carries for 11, 4 for 30, 7 for 60.
And then you're like, oh, wait.
I would like us to get a power back. I would like us to get a big dude.
I don't know.
Cam.
Khalil Herbert might have convinced me.
Khalil
Herbert looked.
I didn't do this today.
Khalil Herbert looked pretty good on that speed option.
I didn't do this today. No secret that I defend Zach quite a bit. I think I also am pretty fair and be like, if he's gone, he's gone. He's Andy Dalton, right? He's fine. He's a fine coach. You can get better. You can also get worse. All the play calling that I've ever seen Zac Taylor do, there's certainly situational stuff that's way worse. That speed option, which worked, is the most insane play call that I've ever seen. I've never disagreed with a call more than that speed option. Think about all the times that we've sat in this room and be like, what was Zac Taylor calling there? What were we doing in that situation? That speed option was insane, guys. It's a play that we've run once in 5 years of Joe Burrow. We did it in overtime to try to keep our postseason hopes alive with a running back that has played like 12 snaps in his 10 weeks. And we did it while our quarterback is cooking their defense through the air. We run a speed option. It worked.
It worked.
It worked.
Great play.
Insane.
Would it have worked if he shoveled it? If he pulled it and shoveled it, he would have blown up.
It definitely wouldn't.
I know you guys are making fun of me because we talk about this group chat. We actually our Chatterbox group chat talked a lot after that game about the mismanagement. I just kept going up that speed option was crazy. Am I the only one who thought that? Like, am I the only one that watched that in real time? And like, that's the craziest play call I've
I didn't
ever
lose
seen.
my mind about it in real time.
That was
because it worked.
I'm
point.
trying to remember when it happened. It was the second time, right? It wasn't the first drive. It was that second drive.
It was the second drive. We just got a first down.
Okay.
And we run that play on 1st and 10.
That's
after like a 17-yard play.
Because I remember I was numb at that point. I was ready to die, and I remember watching that play, and I was like, oh, that was a crafty little play.
Well, that's actually my point.
It's a pretty good looking play.
That's the point that I always make about play call, is that we can bitch about play call all we want. And I can use that word because we're just on YouTube now.
You can say it on the radio too.
Oh, can I? We can bitch about play call, but in the end of the day, if it works, they're geniuses. If it doesn't work, what the heck is that? That douche that I told you about that sat in front of me? I was okay with running the ball early in the game on 3rd and short and 4th and short. I know people don't like that because you're taking the ball out of Joe Burrow's hands. I think the exact same people that are going, how do we take the ball out of Joe Burrow's hands on 3rd and short and 4th and short? Have your elite MVP caliber quarterback make the play. If we didn't run the ball on either one of those plays and threw 2 incomplete passes or get sacked or something like that, we'd be going, how do you not run the ball on 3rd and short and 4th and short? So that's just, I think it's just hypocritical. I will stand steadfast that speed option is one of the craziest plays I've ever seen called. It worked. It worked. But can you imagine if it gets blown up and it's a loss of a yard? Yeah. We'd be sitting here, what? Why not drop the ball? Why not drop back and throw the ball? Yeah. Heaven forbid, Khalil Herbert's played 12 snaps this year. In one of them, he fumbled the ball. Huh? What happens if he fumbles that ball?
Joe fumbled that ball.
Okay, that's right.
No, you're right. It is crazy.
I'm complaining to nobody right now because no one thought of it that crazy. Because it worked. Because once again, it worked.
If it didn't work, it might have had a whole segment.
It would have had a whole segment. That's the point that I'm getting at. Jacob always says we grade processes, not results. So I'm grading that process.
Yes.
Absolutely insane call. I'll give Zach credit, though. I thought the one play call, I think it was 3rd and short, maybe 4th and short, where we threw it to Drew Sample. Was that on 4th? 4th and 1?
I think it was 4th. Yeah,
it was 4th. Loved that. Because Drew Sample, 98% of the time we put him in there, he's a lead blocker for the running back. And we slip him out.
What was the reaction in the stadium to the upright shank? What was it to Cade York's 33 missed yard? Because I've
completely quiet.
I was no booing,
quiet.
No anything like that. No, it was just shock.
It was just completely quiet.
Because I don't know what I would have done. I think I texted Reed. They would have had to drag me out.
I sat down. So
I would have like handcuffed myself to the chairs, and they would have had to take off this chair and carry me out.
My family, God bless them. Whenever we go to football games, they don't sit in their seats. They just get in, and then they normally sit in the end zones, standing room. And I hate that so much. We did it at the AFC Championship game a couple years ago. I think the best seat in a football stadium, I swear to God, I truly believe the best seat, your seats are right there, right? I need to be elevated, and I need to be in the front row. Yeah. So if you're like 3rd level, nosebleeds, but I'm in the 1st row, to where no one's in front of me, and I get to see the whole field, I think that's my favorite seat in the house. It's not like baseball where you have to be on the ground level to see things happen. My family always sits in the end zone. So I sat up at top, and then at halftime, I go sit there, and I couldn't see shit. So I'm like having to hold up my nephews on my shoulders. They can see it. And I almost dropped my nephew. When I sat down just on the concrete. I was like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
But I couldn't even imagine.
All's well that ends well.
I couldn't have even imagined it. Just terrible.
The speed option is a great play when you have the numbers. I get it. I just can't. It worked. We ran a play one time in 5 years. And we're going to do it with our backup running back in a game that it feels like we've lost and won 6 times already. And our quarterback is just dicing up this defense. And we're going to run that play. I just can't wrap my head around it. But no one's going to complain. Because it worked.
That's right.
It worked, and that's the whole thing about play calling.
I got a stat of the day presented by Jay Morrison. Jay Morrison tweeted this out a couple minutes ago here, 11:45. The Bengals opened as a 2.5-point favorite against the Steelers on Saturday. Line has moved.
We've been favored, 13 times?
Line has moved to 3. This will be the 55th game they've played in Pittsburgh. They've only been favored one other time.
And my guess is it was
one other time.
It was probably like a final game of the season scenario where they weren't playing and we were.
Yeah.
If I had to guess.
Unbelievable.
What about the stat that Jay Morrison tweeted out? That was our first offensive touchdown
In overtime
franchise history.
I saw that and I couldn't believe it. Because we've been to overtime a lot.
Yeah, but we normally just kick field goals.
That's the touchdown was a pick 6. I saw the highlight of it. That's crazy.
I would say a good majority of overtimes end in field goal. Like I would say 70% of them end in field goal.
How many overtimes have we had this year? Have we gone? Was that
second, 2, 3?
What was our first one?
Ravens was overtime.
Ravens was overtime. That's right.
And I think that was it. I think it was just those 2 games. But we've had a lot of games go down to the wire.
Would have been Ravens twice had they kicked the extra point. But yeah, I mean it's pretty insane. I'm glad they won. I'm glad they were able to pull that one out because it felt like this season that was the one thing that like the 2021 Bengals had. They were able to pull those games out. I think they're 2-7 now in 1-score games this year, something like that. But it felt good to get one on the board.
Why does it feel better? Why does this feel better? Because
I think it feels better.
So if we take Vegas, right? The favorites win. We miss the postseason. We win 9-8. That's the worst case scenario in terms of a franchise, right? We're gonna be the last team in. We're gonna have the 18th pick, 17th pick, whatever it is, same spot we had last year. Back-to-back years, being the last team out, or the first team out, however you say that. But it feels better because they're playing. It's a true testament to winning cures all, because we're winning games, so it feels better. It just feels better.
You're right.
I think it feels better too because we've seen how horrible this season has been to all of us. It's just like we haven't been able to enjoy so much of it. And to have this little winning streak at the end give us some life, show us some fight, I think it's what we've wanted all year long, and to finally get it, to give us a chance to play meaningful football. Because this feels like it's sad, but it feels like our Super Bowl. Like this feels like a successful season just because you were able to, when all the cards were against you, still managed to make this final week matter. And nobody thought that was going to happen after the Chargers game, after the Steelers game. You kept saying after all these losses, you got to win out. And to finally actually win out would be some sort of success. I don't think a lot of people, not me, thought that was possible. I was on the camp that we bench Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, and we bench everybody after that Steelers loss because there would be no point of playing. I was proven wrong. They're able to fight for a chance at the playoffs. Not a good chance, mind you, but it is some sort of chance that you wouldn't have had this team legitimately rolled over and quit.
If we would have won one more game, we'd be in the postseason hunt. Who would we be compared to in terms of like feistiness? I'm saying because we'd be the 6th seed or the 7th seed. Would we be the AFC version of the Packers? Is that what we would be? To where like we're clearly not as good as the Chiefs or the Bills, maybe even the Ravens to that jest. But in the same way, the Packers are clearly not as good as the Lions or the Eagles.
Vikings, maybe.
But also, if the Packers make it to the NFC Championship game, I don't think that surprises anybody.
No. I think the Vikings would be, because the Vikings had a very, very good season this year, and they're still somehow, they're not going to win that division, or they can. They
beat the Lions with a 1 seed.
It was a 1 seed.
Okay, then I'll take the loser of that game. The loser of that game would be the Bengals.
Poor Jimmy.
A 14. You're comparing the Bengals to a 14
yeah.
3.
I think the Packers are a good comp.
Oh, yeah.
I think the Packers are a really good comp.
Oh yeah.
I think Bengals fans are a little bit in their own head about how scared people are to play them.
I agree.
Because they're not.
Correct.
Like
we are one.
The Bills would rather play the Bengals than the Chargers or the Broncos.
The Bills would rather play the Bengals than the Chargers, the Broncos?
Yes.
No way.
See, I think so.
No way.
I think so. I think
nobody
those
wants
two
Joe Burrow
defenses are
coming.
elite.
I agree, but nobody wants Joe Burrow coming to town. Nobody.
You know you can score
I think
40.
the Bills.
Like, you're relying on your kicker
Yeah,
versus their
but-
kicker.
yeah,
It's going
but-
to be 45-48.
Yeah, but you know if you make one mistake, you give Jermaine Pratt one little interception.
Yeah, you're right.
And it's like, can you come back from
I don't know.
that?
A lot of people are like, oh, the Chiefs are going to lose on purpose to keep the Bengals out because they're so scared about playing the Bengals. Like, they're not.
They're not, but I think they're more scared of playing the Bengals than they are the Broncos.
I agree.
1,000,000%.
Chargers?
I think we're on par with the Chargers.
Okay.
I think
Okay.
we're-
That's.
I think we're-
I can live within the middle of there.
Do they get JK back?
Yeah, JK's been playing.
I don't care about JK. It's hardball and Herbert.
But
Hardball and Herbert.
having him in Harbaugh's offense helps the run game.
Also, real quick before we leave, Mark Fetters, Super Chat, go Bucks. Mark Fetters, 15-month member. Thank you very much, Mark.
Yeah,
Love you.
hell yeah.
But that's it for our show. We have Box Lunch coming up.
Yep.
We have Box Lunch coming up in a bit. We're going to get all our radio stuff out, and then we'll be back. So that's all I got.
See you guys. I had fun today.
I had
Bengals-
fun, too. That was a fun show.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, when the Bengals are winning, it makes everything a lot better. I implore you guys that aren't members. We're gonna joke around a little bit, then we'll probably play like Quiplash or something like that. But I implore you to go watch Dialed In, because like I said, I think Luke Brenneman was leaning into the Chiefs are deliberately keeping the Bengals out of the postseason. Which, if we get that narrative out,
That's fun.
I'll say this final thing. Nick Wright's tweet. I don't know if you saw this.
I
Nick
didn't see
Wright
this
put
one.
out a 4-paragraph tweet about how the Chiefs aren't afraid of the Bengals. There's nothing that says I'm not afraid of a team more than putting out a 4-paragraph tweet.
Speaking of 4-paragraph tweets, McAfee went off. See him tear up the Colts organization?
Yeah.
Whew.
The Colts. I know you're an AR-15
I am.
guy.
I am.
I know you're an AR-15 guy, but should they go after Sammy D?
That'd be sick.
Because
I'm all the way in on Sam Darnold, by the way. Like, wherever he goes next year, I'm pretty much
I
in.
might be in on him,
As long
too,
as they have a
which-
wide receiver one, I'm going to back
Which
that.
stinks.
I think.
He's
I
kind of a
think.
monster.
I might be in. They'll have Addison, right?
Well, I'm saying if he leaves Minnesota
Oh, I see.
and the team
I
he
see.
goes to has a wide receiver one,
I see.
I'm in.
I see.
Like, I don't count Pittman in that, though. Like, they would have to go get, like, T
Yeah.
or something like that.
Colts aren't too far away.
No, I like a lot of pieces on the Colts.
Colts
That's what
aren't too far
McAfee
away.
says.
I think a lot of their issues are their GM that has never won anything and been there for 20 years.
Jonathan Taylor, my guy. Did you watch that game? You guys were watching that game. Why did he just go out of bounds on 3rd and 1?
Yeah, that happens.
What was that?
Yeah.
I mean, it worked out for you. Guys know the play I'm talking
Yeah,
about?
he's put up some head scratchers over the last couple weeks.
He literally could have. He just had to go forward. There was no one in front of him. He just had to go forward 1 more yard, and he's just like, "Yeah, I'm good there." And then they show the shot of him after he fell short on 4th, and he's like,
Poor
it's like-
JT.
It's like JT. You got to be a better football player than this.
Poor JT.
I mean, just they have those little markers on the sideline to show you where to run. Just go past it. Crazy. All right, we're gonna take off. We're gonna have box lunch for the members here coming up shortly. See you guys. Have fun today. See ya. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.